What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. Soul Effector, Charlie from the R&B Talk Show. I'm your podcast host and DJ part-time sometimes. But this guest I got right here, let me tell you something. He's a legend. Anytime you in the business, you mention Kevin E. Taylor, trust and believe, say you think about the resume. Come on, Kevin E. Taylor is an older author, jaded, unclutter because he lives like it's time it's time for some action. I love it, brother. You know what I'm saying? I love it. You know what I'm saying? And your work, but I'm gonna let you, do the intro yourself. But I want to say that I'm gonna give you your flowers, man, because you've been in this game for a long time. You see the highs and lows, the people who you've been affiliated with that you call family, and to watch people grow their careers, man, it's unbelievable and stuff. And also want to give you my condolences to you because of your friendship, Natalie Cole, who was like, a sister to you and stuff. And I felt like, come from me, it's been, like a decade and stuff, but I will give it to you, because I feel like it was well deserved and stuff. So,
Thank you,
but,
brother. I appreciate it.
yeah, go ahead.
So, what's beautiful is that I don't know if you noticed in the timing. 50 years ago, 50 years tomorrow was when Inseparable dropped.
Wow, 50 years ago. Good. Yeah,
50 years, May 11, 1975 is when the world met Natalie Cole.
Wow. Yeah, because I want to talk about your friendship, your history with Natalie Cole. So how did y'all meet up? With each other.
Listen, for anybody out there who's been a fan of somebody, I was 11 years old in the projects in Southwest DC, and as a little nerd kid, one day I found a dictionary in the trash when I went to throw it out. I found a little dictionary, pocket dictionary by the trash that I used to just read from, learn to read words. And she came on the talk show. Probably June, July was the summer. It was hot. I remember that. And the dude introduced her, as Natalie Cole. Because my mother was such a big fan of Nat King Cole, I assumed that might be his daughter, and she was black. So people don't realize 1975, we had Good Times, the one dude on Welcome Back Carter, and you know what I mean? We didn't have a plethora of black images. So, with my asthma, I stayed in the house. The show came on. She came out and sang Inseparable, then sat down. Sang This Will Be, sat down, and he asked her a little bit about her father. Then he asked her when she started singing. She said her junior year of college. College? Right. Black people can go to college? That's what black people? College? So they already pulled me in like that. And then he said, let's talk about your project. And she said, well, my album's called Inseparable. For my little 10-year-old brain in the projects that was also a nerd, back in the day, in order to use words, you had to be able to spell them, define them, and use them in a sentence. I could spell it because the album cover was on the TV. I could define it because now I had a dictionary. Bound in an eternal bond, never separated. How do you use that in a simple, in a sentence? And she sang it. But like a flower to a tree, like words to a melody of love. There's no way we could break up, no words that can make us blow our thing because we're just bump, bump, bump. And I was like, I'm in love. Like she just changed the trajectory of my brain because here was her using a big word like inseparable in a sentence. Here she was talking about college. For that little nerd kid, I didn't know, nor did I have much encouragement on what I was supposed to do with being smart. So I wrote to Natalie Cole. Every year, I would write her like a 10-page letter and send her a copy of my report card. And one day, I got a letter back. And that was just kind of it for my childhood, especially for that deep 70s, hit. I was in the projects. Natalie was a mega star. So she was playing out at the arena that no bus went to, so I couldn't even get to her. But I had every album on cassette and vinyl, and was ripping out articles out of Jet, Ebony, Sepia, Black Stars, everything I could collect on her. I did, and then look, it's so funny that as a teenager, when she was doing those Soul Train Posner ads, I actually, this is how smart I was as a kid, I actually found the address and the phone number for Posner and called, and a young lady spoke to me, and I told her what a big fan I was, and she opened an account for me so that every time a Posner ad came out, I got it in the mail.
Oh man, that's awesome, man. Yeah.
See?
That's a classic. I forgot all about those too, though. The soul trade. These I remember these to like always mail out posters and everything. Man, I miss those days.
And so that, then let's just, so then the drug thing happens. Then, she's, gone to rehab. Then she's starting to come back. And she's slowly making her way back as I am now in college. And I'm still writing her. One day I went to my mailbox, pulled out a letter, and I recognized the handwriting, but I didn't. And then I was like, oh, I wonder what this is. And I opened it. And as I pulled the paper out, it was a purple piece of paper. And at the top, it said Natalie. And I went, and my best friend was with me. And I was like, she's like, breathe. You got to read it. You got to read it. And I pulled it out. And it's a handwritten letter from Natalie Cole.
Wow.
Dated April 25th, 1986.
Man, that's like 39 years ago. I know that blew your mind. Whatever you think about that.
It blew my mind. And it was the sweetest, like, thank you for your sweet letter. It was really nice. Got a new single coming. You're really going to like it. And I look forward to talking to you soon. And I was like, what? And then, it took a while, but Jumpstart came out and, ran her back to the top of the charts.
That was a hot jam. I tell you, though, at 1987, you could not go nowhere without hearing that song. That's how big that was. That was
Casanova, and the same dudes from Midnight Star did both songs.
Yep. Shout out to the Calloway brothers and stuff. Yeah, wrote those hits. And I remember I think I was coming home from school and we went to skate and the DJ played that record. He put on repeat maybe like 5-6 times.
Right.
How big it was.
People love Natalie Cole and that, the fact that she was back and with this funky jam. So yeah, and I was born and raised in DC. And sometimes you would hear it on loop. It was like somebody just kept playing it because it was a good Saturday outside, hopscotch, roller skate, be outside jam. And I was like, and people be, it was people like grown people walking up to me and I'm 20, like, dude, your girl back. And I'm like, okay. So, and then, I still did my side of the correspondence. And then somewhere, in that envelope, she also sent me like her manager's card, which had all this information on it. And so I was always in touch with them. And then Unforgettable came. I started at BET in March of 91. And then late that year, she ended up at performing at Radio City in New York. And I took one of my close friends up to see her. And I ended up by her car to just get her to sign my program book. Because roll back real quick, the first time I met her was for Posner for that perfect performance. I just saw you, and she was hot. And so she wasn't in a good place. And so I remember, but she quizzed me. She was clear enough to quiz me. So when I got to the line and I had these little handmade buttons that I put paper in a clear report folder and then cut them this way and then tape them over and put a safety pin on the back. It was great. But and so when I get to the front of the line, one of my pins says Natalie Cole's #1 fan. And her manager says, oh, that's a big deal. And I was like, yes. And he said, what's your name? I said, Kevin. And he said, my name's Kevin too. Her manager was Kevin Hunter. I said, I know. And her former fiance, who was also her drummer, was Kevin Nance. So she must like Kevin's. He's like, wow, you know a lot. And in front of hundreds of people in this in-store appearance, he said, Natalie, I want you to meet your #1 fan. And the room was like, and I was like, and she said, so you're my #1 fan. She said, if you're my #1 fan, what was the name of the 6th song of my night? What was the name of the 3rd song of my 6th album? I was like, And everybody was like, yeah, come on, shorty. I said, she said, what was the name of the 3rd song of my 6th album? I said, your 6th album was I Love You So. It had 9 tracks, and the 3rd one is It's Been You. What was my son Robert? Your son Robert Adam Yancey was born October 14, 1977 in Cedar-Sinai Hospital. Everybody was there in attendance, and you're from your family with your mother who was snowed in from Boston. And so she just kind of pummeled me. And so it went from the who this kid think he is to people like, oh, yeah, give him another one, Natalie. And so that just kind of put me in her whole team's head. So when I wrote, they made sure my letters got to her. So when she wrote me back, that was a big deal. But then when I called, they knew who I was. But we didn't have any reason to really have anything much more than a fan artist relationship until 1990. So 91, she knew I was at BET. We would talk we talked once or twice, which is crazy to me. But then in 93, they because Natalie didn't do an interview with BET in 91 for Unforgettable, because Unforgettable dropped and she hit the road. Father's Day, she was in concert for 2 years almost straight. So she said, I owe BET an interview. My boss, Sidney Mahmoud, was like, all right, so go home and write questions, because at the time, by this time, I'm the music researcher and record label liaison. So I go home and write all these questions. I bring them to her the next day. She goes, Natalie Cole was the first Black person to win Best New Artist. Natalie Cole was the first Black woman to win Album of the Year. Didn't Roberta win it? Didn't know. Natalie was the first. You know, I didn't know Natalie was studying to be a doctor. Yes, she was studying psychology with a German minor. She said, I've decided who's doing the interview. And I'm thinking she's going to say Donnie Simpson. And she said, you. And I said, for what show? Like, for what? And she said, I don't know. Create it. So I created a show called Lyrically Speaking. And my first interview was my favorite artist on the planet Earth, Miss Natalie Maria Cole. So much so that when we got to the Sheraton Peninsula in New York for the interview, she hugged me at the door, kissed me, which drove me crazy. I was like, oh, blah, blah. And then she said, so who's doing the interview? And I said, me, like a kid. And I'm how old am I? 27, 28, 28. I was like, me. Oh, and she's like, oh, hell no. And I was like, oh, no. My favorite singer. They say never meet your favorites. Now she's saying I'm an imposter. Why would she? And she sees it on my face. And she says, no, sweetie, I'm saying you have forgotten more about my career than I'll remember. I said, it's okay, Natalie. I'll walk you through your career. So let's go sit. And then she was like, y'all, did he hear what he said? And he gonna walk me through my career. And that's what I did. So much so that the next year, I was Nancy Wilson's assistant for a weekend because she was doing an event for Bob Johnson. And Natalie was in town with her then husband, Andre Fisher, to get an I Am award from the Black radio conglomerate. And they came to the party at Mr. Johnson's house. And I'm talking to Nancy Wilson. Somebody covers my eyes. I'm like, who would do that at Bob Johnson's house in front of Nancy Wilson? And I turn around and it's Natalie Cole. And she goes, hi, sweetie. I didn't know you'd be here. And then she reaches over to hug Nancy. And I'm the meat on the Natalie Cole, Nancy Wilson sandwich. I'm stuck in the middle. And then she goes, sweetie, what are you doing here? And I'm thinking, how did you recognize me from the back? And then we just kind of spent the whole evening together. And that night she told me, I signed a book deal to write my autobiography, and I'm going to need you.
Wow.
And after that, we just had converse. She would just call because it was always kind of what she was asked, like, did I get arrested in August or September of 75? I said, now that you got arrested on your birthday in February. Why do you remember this stuff? And I was like, we promised, as I promised, you wouldn't make me feel crazy about how much I know about Natalie Cole.
Oh, so, man.
I know the date. I can send you the clip if you need it. And so it became a lot of that. And then, I don't know, it's mind-boggling to me. And to the point that, honestly, bro, I thought, wow, look at God. This is the greatest thing God could ever do. I got to interview my favorite. God was like, I ain't finished. So Luther, Anita, Tina, Patty, Stevie, Diana, it just kept going. But it started at the top of the mountain for me with Natalie Cole.
Wow. Yeah, I tell you though, man, you know, because I always, you know, because I remember when she did the Unforgettable album, Pay Homage to Her Dad. It was like every time you turn on TV, MTV, BET, VH1, was the NBC Friday Night Videos. You be in a car. That video, I mean, that album ran for 2 straight years. You could not go to work 91, 92, 93.
People couldn't stand it. You understand me?
Yeah.
Because, you know, Natalie Cole disemboweled the music industry because there was Queensryche and REM and Electron. There was huge rock groups that Natalie left over to get to #1, and she stayed.
Yeah.
The album that EMI Records told her wouldn't sell, and if she recorded it, it wouldn't count towards her contract. So she got out of her contract, and then she sold 14 million albums.
Wow. Man, left out on top. You know, I remember when she cut her hair short. There, I think it was like in the early, kind of like mid-90s, because we all know for like the long hair.
Oh, she cut her hair for the Unforgettable album. Right after she chopped it then.
Chopped it in, and I was like, shit. I said, they look good though. You know what I'm saying? You know, and off the side, my aunt, in the younger days, they used to call her Natalie Cole because they look like sisters and stuff. You know, he got the same hazel eyes and everything. Only difference, I think, mine's maybe like a shade darker than her, but they used to call her Natalie Cole here in Louisville, Kentucky.
They probably were the same shade because there were times, like if you look at Natalie's 1978 Ebony cover, they had kind of really washed her out almost with light. So Natalie's a lot browner than people realize she was.
Yeah, you know, I like the biography movie that she did on herself, and she did an amazing job. Where it was like she had the sister, I can't think of her name. She played like the first half of Natalie.
Teresa Randall.
Yeah, Teresa Randall.
She was in Girl 6. She was in Spike Lee's Girl 6.
Yeah, like a Girl 6. And then Natalie picked up for like I think it was like 85, 86 on up and stuff. And it's amazing to play yourself and still be in the best shape, you know, say ever. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, who does that?
You know, when people look at where the real issue was with like Natalie and Aretha always had people at her like they were always trying to throw somebody out as a new queen. And so Natalie was taller, Natalie was skinny, you know, when Aretha was going through weight issues. Natalie was supermodel height, you know what I mean? She was tall, skinny, and those hazel eyes, and her daddy was Nat King Cole. Because Aretha not only had Reverend C.L. Franklin as her father, which was a pretty big deal, but her piano idol was Nat King Cole. So for his daughter to be the one causing her problems was a real problem, especially like even her father. Natalie told the story one time of hosting the American Music Awards, and Aretha's father came into her dressing room, like, "Girl, you was a singing heifer," and Aretha's like, "Daddy, come out of there, get out of there," because she was so likable, and people Aretha wanted her to be a problem, and so she wasn't. She loved Aretha.
Yeah, that's crazy though, because looking back at it, that makes sense because it was like from 69 to like maybe 78, whatever. Aretha was all about Aretha every single year, you know what I'm saying?
68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74.
74, right there. Okay, yeah. So like good, yeah, good 5.
Respect, and they call it the Aretha Award.
Yeah, you know, she was kind of like the Beyonce for Beyonce, not the singing part, just like win it every year, you know. And they always say it takes that one artist to pull the brakes on everything and stuff, you know. And it just goes show you that, you know, one thing about music, when it touches a fan's soul, it just goes at a different level. Radio, the call, and everything and stuff. And you know, I guess because she was young, and I guess it kind of feed her ego as far as Aretha and stuff, and she probably was like, "Oh my God, somebody." Now this ain't no sabotage.
They had done a ceremony somewhere in Chicago, I think, where they crowned her the Queen of Soul. So, because she wasn't always the warmest person, you know, for issues that we heard about in her movie and in her life, she was protective of herself. So, aloofness might have been seen by people as like mean, but she was just self-protecting in her own world. And so, there was people who just didn't think she was nice, and women shouldn't always have to be nice. As long as I give you my show, but they were always sicking people on her. The next, you know, everybody was the next, and Natalie was the one that stuck, and it happened to be that girl at that season, you know, and it really dug at her in a certain kind of way, because people don't realize that the first year Natalie won, Aretha wasn't even nominated, which was a real rarity.
Wow.
And so it was not as hurtful as her because she's like, they didn't nominate me. It was the next year when Aretha had not only returned to the charts, but it was for the soundtrack to Sparkle. That thing is brilliant.
Yeah.
And so everybody thought, okay, she's back in stride again. She was in all white. Let me show up and get my award back. But Natalie had recorded Natalie with Mr. Melody and Sophisticated Lady on it. The Sophisticated Lady was a banger.
Ah, man, that was a classic.
When she won the second time, then Aretha was ready to fight.
Yeah. I want to ask you something though. Please. You know, I know this one album never gets talked about a lot. I know you had plenty of conversations about this. It was a duo album she did with her and People Bryson.
I mean, you know, at the time, Capitol Records had basically, you know, this Queen of Soul, the Sophisticated Lady of Soul. Natalie could like that one, the Sophisticated Lady of Soul. Natalie was on a string. Natalie had done Inseparable, and then Natalie. and Unpredictable and Thankful were platinum in
Mhm.
the same year.
Woo!
Then Natalie's Natalie Live album, and you want to talk about a beast? Listen to Natalie Live. My favorite album on the earth is Natalie Live.
Oh,
And
that's
then,
a classic. Yeah.
and then I Love You So came after it, and even though it was a quiet album, it went gold. So Natalie had not had anything that wasn't selling hard. And then People came along, and so they knew if they put those two together, they were going to have gold. They had everything but, because People and teams showed up in the room, and egos, and who gets half, who gets what single, who gets to write. And so and what was sad about it is that they didn't get to do the thing that caused them to do the album in the first place. Natalie and People had toured together. And you were getting a thing at the level of Anita Baker and Luther Vandross. It was a really huge ticket. And so when the album came, people thought they were really going to get another tour. People don't really care about the album itself. They wanted the tour, and we never got it.
Wow, man, it make it more like what could have been. You know, what I'm saying that would have been.
It does, because honestly, if you look at American Music Awards from 1992, Natalie and Whitney had that moment that it's gone viral.
Yeah.
If you look in the audience of that shot when they call Natalie Cole's name, the first person to stand on their feet is Peabo Bryson.
Wow.
And that really touched me, because there was never much between them. It's what people do in camps.
Yeah.
Now there's a headline, this, that, that who you are and who people tell you they are, who people try to tell other people you are, and how people go into rooms with your voice. So, thank God they had, Natalie and People were good. But seeing him stand to his feet first for her really, was a beautiful moment, because so many of these artists that people try to put in beefs aren't in beef.
Yep. Nope. That's real true. You're right about that. I find it strange why she's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I never understood that. With all the back-to-back platinum and gold, multi-platinum albums, diamond albums, recognitions and all.
It's back-to-back gold and platinum. And let's be very clear that Natalie's two first gold albums are platinum albums, because they had to change the industry. Gold now is 500,000 and platinum is 1 million. Yeah. Natalie and Inseparable and Natalie sold 1 million copies. That just used to be gold.
Yeah.
So Natalie's first 6 albums sold 1 million copies each. And Natalie Cole, has this struggle in her career, and then comes back a pop star. Then she has R&B hits. Then she has adult contemporary hits. Then she does Unforgettable. Natalie Cole has won pop Grammys, R&B Grammys, jazz Grammys, adult contemporary Grammys. Natalie Cole has had a career that also included, you mentioned this in your piece, not only did Natalie Cole do Big Break in 1990, Eric Benet came from Big Break. Tanya Blunt, now Tanya Trotter from The War and Treaty, is from Big Break. And the winner of Big Break was R. Kelly.
Yep.
So in one season, she's given birth to more stars than The Voice has in 5.
Yeah, I used to love watching that show when it first came on and stuff on TV.
And now they're bringing her friends and In Vogue and those insanely beautiful duets with her and Whitney. Patty, that moment with her and Patty where they cut up. All of the stars came out because Natalie called her friends. Smokey, After 7. Everybody was on the show because Natalie was friends with everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
So when asked about it, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is essentially a musical boys club. They get to decide, a group that we don't know of gets to decide who even gets nominated. Wow. It happens 25 years after your first recording, and that for Natalie was 25 years ago, and they still. But think about it, Dionne Warwick just went in last year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But A Tribe Called Quest is already in. Salt and Pepper's going in this class.
Yeah, like
that's a bunch of white boys who are like, I know hip hop. I don't know much about Dionne. I don't know. Diana Ross is in twice, a solo artist and as a member of the Supreme. So it's really about who's on whose radar. That's why I've always bro. I tell you, I've always been a fan of us being really clear about what honor is to us. Because in my little boy dreams, when I'm at the podium going, I want to thank you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It was never a white people's award. It was always an NAACP Image Award. If I get one of those in this lifetime, when I went to Patty house to interview her, that's what I wanted to see in her room. I was like, oh my God, look how many Image Awards you got. She's like, oh, I'm so glad you went right there, because those are the ones. And I was like, how could it not be? You know, it's the whole idea that you are the perennial image for your people. And Natalie got that Natalie's gotten Image Awards for her musical career. She got one for world music after she died. She got one for the Natalie Cole story. And people were like, how did she win that? I said, because she was up against Alfre Woodard in Holiday Heart, which was amazing, and Candy Alexander in Treme, which was on HBO, amazing. But both of those were on cable. Natalie Cole's movie was on NBC.
That's right. It did come around the same time. Okay.
And if we turn on TV now, Living for Love, the Natalie Cole story is playing somewhere. So it was just that accessible to people that when it was time to vote, they were like, yeah, I saw that. She was good.
Wow.
She won. She and her best one, like, you know that moment Beyonce had when she just won country album? It's the same face Natalie Cole had when she won Best Actress. She was like, the friend was like, girl, the camera's on you. Get up. Go get your award. Get up.
Couldn't believe it, you know.
Thank God. That part of the thing that I love about having been able to be this close to my favorite singer is the blessing of having given her flowers while she was still here. Showing up at shows with, there was a spot in New York where you could get 24 roses for, inexpensive price. And I would get 10 dozen, you know what I mean? And be walking in the show. And she's like, go put those on the bus. How am I going to carry those? But she always knew to bring extra vases when she came to New York and New Jersey, because I was bringing her flowers. One time, I get Natalie jewelry. Natalie's taking the necklace off my neck. Oh, I like that. Right. Cute. Yeah, Natalie.
There was a movie that she did with Lawrence Fishburne and Cicely Tyson.
Always outnumbered. Always outnumbered.
Yeah, she did a great job in that, and played a waitress. And I was like, I would love for television to revisit that, that movie, because it's so important what's going on now, today. And it's like, and I thought to myself, as much as she's an amazing singer, they should acknowledge her even more as an actress, because, I mean, for her to have a balance, great. Go ahead.
And so, no, just my point is kind of the point of, so when the year started, I already, the year Natalie Cole died, part of the reason I was like anticipating, oh, good, they'll do right by her, is that even though it was a few days into the new year, the American Film Institute that started the year off with some sort of like retrospective of something. And then they did a montage of artists who had died, of actors and actresses and people in the film industry. And they included Natalie Cole because of her work on television. Natalie did Law and Order. She did Grey's Anatomy. Natalie did, she's in the Lovely about Cole Porter. She did the soundtrack of an animated film called Cats Can't Dance. So she was always spreading her wings wide. And then, and I was telling you earlier, then I got on the phone with a producer friend who was helping to put together the Image Awards. And literally it was like, well, who could do it? And I was like, who could do it versus, and who you could get? Because I was like, well, get Yolanda Adams, because she was a really big fan of Natalie. And they were like, yeah, but she did the Whitney tribute. I was like, okay. They pull out Jennifer Hudson for everything. Why couldn't we just ask Yolanda? There'd been another opportunity for her to show her vocal skills in another round. And then I was like, they were like, what about Tony Brown? I was like, no, Tony's an alto. Natalie's a stone first soprano,
Yeah.
So that happened. And then, that didn't happen. And it was just kind of pissed, but it was like, okay, y'all couldn't get it together fast enough. Fine. I just don't believe that. And it really disappointed me, because like I told you what the Image Awards mean to me. But the Grammys were infuriating. Natalie Cole had 9 awards in 4 different categories and 21 nominations. And when they did the visual montage of artists, Natalie Cole's visual was Natalie Cole paying tribute to Nat King Cole. That was so insulting to me, I couldn't breathe. I was like, you have her first performance with This Will Be. You have other moments that you could have used of her just singing. Why would you use the moment of her paying tribute to her father to pay tribute to her? So Natalie Cole didn't even pay tribute to Natalie Cole. Natalie Cole didn't even pay tribute to Natalie Cole. But,
Yeah.
bro, let me tell you this. People can say what they want. To the day I die, I will rock with Black entertainment television. Because my family put up a picture of Lettucey at rehearsal. At rehearsal, with her back to the camera, you can tell it was from the director's board. And there's a huge image of Natalie Cole. I couldn't even see who was on the stage. And the post said, "We know, we saw, we know, we got you." Because everybody, DJs would tell me that artists would come in um, and say something about Natalie Cole, and they would say, "Yeah, her biggest fan lives here." They're like, "I know, Kevin Taylor." You know, they'd be like, "Natalie, my friend." So let me tell you this story. When I was working at the Department of Recreation, before I even worked in DC government, my best friend, J.D. Brown, was best friends with Sugar Ray Leonard. He had flown out from DC to Vegas to his fight, and then they stayed the next night to go see Natalie Cole and Smokey Robinson in concert. They go
Right.
stage, and JD walks up to Natalie and goes, "Natalie, I love you, but my assistant back in DC, he your number one fan. And if I don't get your autograph, I ain't gonna be able to go home." And she said, "Oh, that's so sweet. What's his name?" And he said, "Kevin." She said, "Taylor." He was like, "I'm in Vegas, and I think I'm gonna have all this juice with Natalie Cole by getting your autograph." And I said your first name, and she knew your last name. And I was like, "Why?" So it was just, it was just colossal to my brain to be able to know that people knew that. So when BET and the BET Honors had Lettucey pay tribute to her, and she did "This Will Be," and I've Got Love on My Mind, then it was that was the first day I cried, because Lettucey, she did "I Got Love on My Mind," and then they went into "This Will Be," and she said, "Come on, y'all, stand up for Natalie Cole. Let us show them how we tribute."
Wow. I know you remember this photo right here. I'm gonna show it to you. I'm gonna turn this camera right here. 1982 Emmy Awards.
Yeah. That's when Natalie Cole brought back the gowns, because for that Unforgettable album, she had designers. Natalie Cole did. So you talk about all the things that she did. The other thing that Natalie tells about, she talks about going into towns where philharmonic and orchestras were saying, "Thank you for this album," because where we used to maybe do a show or two a year, like the Philharmonic night, and then maybe play with some opera singer, they said now everybody wants an orchestra with them. You resuscitated the orchestra, right? But other designers are like, "And you gave birth to the gown again." In my personal collection, I own the gown that Natalie Cole wore the night before the Grammys, when she did a big tribute to, she did a big benefit to save the Apollo and raised like $1 million.
Wow.
And the gown she's wearing, I own.
Wow, man.
So she brought back gowns. There were designers sending her sketches to build dresses, and that black dress she has in blue and red and purple.
Yeah. I tell you that I remember I was telling my auntie, we were talking about Natalie Cole. We was like, what would make a great super group? And they was alive today. And she mentioned Whitney Houston, Natalie Cole. Who else she mentioned? I'm trying to. I think she said Mickey Howard, and I think I threw in Melba Moore or something like that.
Oh, that's great. I'm actually working on a project with Melba Moore. I call her the
Yeah.
marvelous Melba Moore.
I told her. I told that honestly have a heart attack.
So you can hear it because we've seen Natalie and Whitney sing together many times.
Yeah.
People know the tour that they did on Big Break. They also at Clive Davis's party. Whitney was the performer, but she did "This Will Be," so she said Natalie and brought Natalie with her. But the first time, with Natalie, Whitney was singing with BB and CeCe Winans a song called "Hold Up the Light" at the 1988 Image Awards. And when Natalie won that year in her return with "I Live for Your Love," she's like, "This is so unexpected, so I'll sing because I'm not prepared to talk." And she said something. But when they brought all the stars up, BB Winans like to do a mic toss, and he handed her that mic. And that moment, people are like, "Why the credits rolling?" Because you didn't plan that moment. It just happened at the close of the show. He handed the phone to Natalie, and she was at one end of the stage. Whitney was at the other. Them two hollered till they met in the middle and hugged. It was just something about their voices. But people don't even realize how huge of a Natalie Cole fan Whitney Houston was. Whitney's second album is called Whitney, her first name, because Natalie's second album was called Natalie.
Wow. That makes sense though. Yeah, because if you look at Whitney Houston early albums, it was like Whitney Houston, Whitney, then Whitney this, Whitney that. So that makes sense though. Wow.
And you know, and Natalie, and Whitney felt like she understood, like Natalie understood her because she grew up in a famous family. People don't realize that Whitney grew up in the shadow of her mother, who's out with everybody, and Dion is her cousin, and Aretha Franklin is associated with the family. So all of those people were in Whitney Houston's house. So when she and Natalie met, she felt like they were sisters because you get it. You get, you know, with Aunt Ella and Aunt Sammy, and Uncle Sammy, Uncle Frank. You understood famous people being around, and you just sitting in their laps, being their little pumpkins. So when they met, they felt like kindred sisters, and they could talk about a lot of the struggle, not just of the music industry, but all of that legacy and weight on you too. Like Whitney came out like, you better be good.
Yeah.
Pretty, that's nice, but you better be good. Natalie got the same thing. You pretty, but you better be good. And that was part of why Natalie came out so hard. Natalie came out with a big old fro and, you know, them jumpsuits because she was trying to get away from the delicate refinement of her mother. And, you know, all of that jazz, be a lady, be proper. And she came out growling. She came out funky. You can look up Natalie Cole 1975 on like Midnight Special. It was funky.
Yeah, because I tell you though, like my mother told me, she told me some stories that she saw her when they came to Louisville back in like in 77, 78 or something like that. And he said she put on a heck of a show. They tore it up on things.
I've gotten in the car with people playing Natalie live, and they would be like, "Damn, what was that? Aretha singing?" I was like, "That's not Aretha. That's Natalie live." And they were like, and I remember one of my friends going, "Oh snap, that's why Aretha was after her throat." I was like, "Do you see it? If you listen to Natalie Cole sing Party Lights on her Unpredictable album was da da da. It was a disco song.
Yeah.
On the live album, it's 1, 2, 1. I was like, who turned that into a gospel house shouting song? And they were like, we just when I tell you, Natalie Cole, you know, she did the jazz riff before This Will Be. She did Que Sera Sera and did the rock. She turned Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds by the Beatles into a reggae soul jam. And then she did all of her hits. That thing was classic. And people, you had to have been in the building to hear what it felt like. You know, one critic of Natalie's live album said Natalie Cole creates near pandemonium on this project. Like that, people seem like, you know, and then I talked to Aziza Miller, who was Linda Williams and Natalie's original musical director. And, you know, she said, they gave y'all about 3 or 4 seconds of the after show. She said it took us 10 minutes to get that crowd back. It took us a minute to get that crowd back because she said truth be told, it took us a few minutes to get Natalie back because it's so gospel, it's so church that, you know, Natalie goes, party, party. And then she goes, ha. And when you do that, ha, in the church, you gone. When the preacher preach, ha, when somebody's singing that, ha, you're gasping for air. So when she hit that thing, you could tell that she was, you know, she was like, yeah, it took us a minute to get Natalie back.
That's what I like about her. Is like you give her any style or genre, and she will murder the crap out of that song.
Beyonce, Natalie was working on a country album when she left here. Natalie was working on
Yep. And people look at it when she did it was a song she did with Reba McEntire or something like that. And people look at that, they don't even talk about that.
They don't talk about that. And on her I Love You So album, she's got a song called Your Lonely Heart. That was a country song.
Classic. Yeah, because I hate the way they try to manipulate people of today to thinking that, oh man, they making history. Listen, the originators did all that. You know,
Natalie Cole could do anything. Google Natalie Cole, you're gonna see some church, you're gonna see some pop, you're gonna see some jazz. I still remember one of my favorite Natalie Cole performances. They did an evening, was it Carnegie Hall? It was somewhere really beautiful, and they were paying tribute to the music of Rodgers and Hart, Irving Berlin, something like that. I think it was Irving Berlin. And she did a song called Supper Time. And it was one of those, and, you know, white dress, long hair, supper time, time to set the table. And it was mesmerizing to see how she could sing anything. But she came from Nat King Cole.
Wow. Yeah, let me ask you this.
Please
and I don't know if you ever peeped this out. Okay, when when she did the Everlasting album and all the singles and videos came out, then about like what 2 years later, a year later, Vanessa Williams came out. Do you feel like the right stuff was like a Natalie Cole type of song? And then what's a song?
A matter of fact,
Yeah, matter of fact, that one and what's a song? It's a Quiet Storm song. Dreaming. Do you feel like
oh,
that
you
was
know, like Rest of the Night and Dreaming.
yeah,
But I mean, people don't realize, like, even I think that year, I think Natalie and Vanessa presented together at the Grammys.
yeah,
Vanessa Williams was quite a Natalie Cole fan. A lot of people were very kind of that to Natalie because most people don't realize that you don't go down an addiction the way Natalie Cole did and come back like she did.
yeah,
You know, when Natalie won the Soul Train Award in 1988, same year, she cleaned up in 88, same song, I Live for Your Love. After Miss You Like Crazy, this huge #1, then she did, I Live for Your Love was after Jumpstart.
yeah.
So she shows this funky song, then she comes back with this exquisite ballad. She wins the Image Award, she wins a Soul Train Award, and when she won the Soul Train Award, Patti LaBelle presented it to her, and I remember her saying, "For those of you who have seen me come and go and come again, I thank you." You know, the room lost it because they had counted her out.
Yeah.
Black women didn't get to come back like that. Soul singers didn't get to come back like that. She was already of a certain age when the industry was trying to make every star be below 25, and here she was. And so when she came back, people were really like, I get to have a whole career. I get to have a whole career. I get to have a whole career. I'm not over when I cross into my 30s. I get to rebuild. Natalie Cole was the queen of the pivot. She went from R&B. Then she came back and said, well, let's do some pop. Then she said, all right, let's do some adult contemporary with Rest of the Night and Someone's Rocking My Dream, you know, and then More Than the Stars. And then she said, okay, now we're gonna host this show. And then, you know, she does Unforgettable, which wasn't even supposed to count toward her contract, and blows the music industry to smithereens. Everybody, she's just singing her father's stuff. People mad at Natalie Cole because REM lost Album of the Year to her.
Wow.
Because that was that bling, ding, bling, 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 that Losing My Religion year.
Oh yeah.
That was a huge pop thing. Natalie was just huger.
Yeah. she just put a little funk in, you know, she put a little soul in it, and the rest is history.
And you know, and what I loved about it too, you know, because sometimes, and I'm gonna say this aloud, sometimes Natalie Cole didn't give herself enough credit because all those people coming at her. When she did that show the night she did at the Apollo, you know, to save the Apollo, she brought the LaGuardia School of Music choir together to sing with her. And her final song, after doing all of these beautiful things in this spectacular dress, her final song was Our Love. And so she brought this choir to sing behind her. And she hollered, like, it was like, all right, people, you know, I'm doing this in tribute to my father. I won't forget. When she did the Hollywood Bowl, she did her father's song, Too Young, and and did a medley of it and Inseparable that the Los Angeles Times called ingenious. And she just got people in her ear saying, like, this is about your father. You can kind of put your career on hold while you do this. Because Natalie was trying to seamlessly figure ways. I saw Natalie when the Take a Look album came out. She was at Wolf Trap in DC. And she done all the songs, you know, she did it Unforgettable, came back and did Take a Look as the encore, which was originally done by Aretha. And then, you know, we call her back to do another encore, and she's like, all right. And the band is doing this big band. We're like, what are they playing? And she says, we're going to take you back. And we're like, we've been back all night. It's a little song I did in 1975. And then she goes, blah, 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 this will be, blah, blah, blah. I mean, imagine This Will Be, which is already hard for people. Double time. Hugging and squeezing and kissing and the band was losing and the girls were throwing their skirt and the crowd lost it. We started throwing every Natalie Cole song at her. She was like, okay. It's already been 2 hours. I promise it's going to be there when I come back and I'm going to do everything I know. And she did a couple of shows where she would do an hour set of the jazz and R&B, jazz and pop, change clothes and come back and give us a whole R&B show.
Wow.
I was like, how do you get that kind of energy?
Yeah.
But she did. She did.
Yeah, I tell you though, it's like if people type in her live performance, like once you get that stratosphere, oh man, you know, it's over, man. You know, she's on a whole different level.
when you hear the peak of Natalie Cole's voice, when you hear her singing with Whitney, I've got this performance of her with the Soul Children of Chicago choir in '89. She does Take It to Jesus, Don't Make It All Right, and I Love. And she had some notes in there, and I'm like, good God, people didn't realize. With Patti LaBelle, you know, somebody just sent me a thing. They were like, Patti came on the Natalie show and she let her have it, but Natalie show gave it back to her. And they would be like, I ain't know this. I didn't know. I did. All you get is a bunch of I didn't knows because they got pop, you know, they got jazz Natalie with videos came along. They didn't get the woman who challenged everybody in R&B. They didn't get the girl who said she caused pandemonium. They didn't get the girl who said Natalie Cole could stand beside anybody and flatfoot sing.
Yep.
You had to be in the building to witness that. And for those of us who were blessed to see that, man.
You had to be there. It was like a movie.
Right. And part of why I wanted to talk to you is because I love that you referenced like the Everlasting and Good to Be Back and that era, because people don't know how gangster it was for Natalie Cole to be, because Arsenio was there, and you know, there were a couple, you know, Friday night videos. So you got to see the Natalie Cole we didn't get to see. In the 70s era, we didn't have videos. So now we got videos, we got her on shows. This is crazy. Arsenio would be like, my favorite singer. And the woman I named my guitar out of he said I couldn't even play a guitar. I just wanted to get something because B.B. King had a guitar and he named Lucille. So I bought a guitar so I could name something Natalie.
Yeah, because
so many dudes talk about Natalie Cole was their first crush. So many dudes. That brown skin girl with them hazel eyes, it was just when Natalie Cole would walk in the rooms, I've been there with her and everything. Because she's taller than you expect, she's got the shape, she's chocolate, she's hazel eyes, and she smiles. She looks right at you and smiles. I remember one time I went to see her in Queens, and I ended up getting backstage before she got all the way off stage and into her dressing room. She put her face in there. She's like, just give me 5 minutes. And I was like, what? Okay. Like, it's my favorite singer. That's the one I've loved since I was a kid. And she can recognize, hey, Kevin, hey. And I'm like, you can see me? One time I went to see her at a city winery in New York. She was doing her birthday concerts. She wanted to do something intimate. And I was like, you doing this? You can pack a theater. You can pack a hall. But she wanted something that intimate because that's where she started. And she and the band just did bump. And I said, oh, my God, is that Old Daddy? And the whole band was like, you got that on one note? And I was like, and now I said, ladies and gentlemen, that's Kevin. We've been friends for what, 35 years? And I'm in the audience go, we friends? You know what I mean? Because in the audience, I'm Natalie Cole's #1 fan. Even when I saw her last show, it was March 29th of 2015 in New Brunswick, New Jersey. And she said, you coming? I said, of course I'm coming. She said, I'm going to leave you tickets. I said, Natalie, you never have to leave me tickets. All I need is my passes to come backstage. So I would take the ticket she left me and go find people sitting the farthest away and get, because she would give me like 5th row center, but I was front row. And she's like, you know, artists don't like their friends to be on the front row. I said, you don't like your friends to be on the front row because half the time friends be like, this is cute. I've seen this show before. I said, at a Natalie Cole show, I'm Natalie Cole's #1 fan. And you're afraid I'm going to act a fool in front of your little white friends. And you sing the wrong song, I will. And guess what? Okay. And then at the last show, so I get there, and Gail Dietrich, her musical director, says, I knew you'd be here. And I was like, of course, it's Natalie, New Jersey, of course. She said, you don't know, do you? She went over to the piano and picked up the sheet music and walked over to show me the sheet music for Keeping a Light from Thankful, 1977. I was like, oh. She's like, yeah. Wow. Yep. She did the midnight special organ version of This Will Be with the rant started. I was like, I just saw her basically not be able to move well in the shadow. When she got on that stage and that spotlight hit her, pow. Pow.
Oh, man, I tell you though, I swear she's a trailblazer. Because big shouts to Miss V. She sent me pictures of Natalie Cole of some of the concerts that she went to and met her and everything. You know,
and send me those pictures.
Kabir was talking on the phone. It's one thing you be an artist, you know, but somebody that's like icon royalty status, I mean, that comes a once in a lifetime. And sometimes even be on a consistent basis, like it makes you think like, man, like I step my game up even further, you know. God brought me this person for a reason. So I gotta do something. And it just goes from there and stuff, you know.
Absolutely. Like I said, you know, the fact that Natalie Cole, wait, let me show you. Look. I didn't realize it was this close. This book right here is the book she was calling me about, right? And so for me, like my life is forever fortified by the fact that Natalie Cole's autobiography, let me see, right here on page, in the introduction, it's sub-page 8. This section is her dedication to me.
Wow.
If you go to the pictures, in the picture section, the last picture is Natalie Cole and me.
Oh man, that's a classic right there.
Right? And then if you go and open the book, the last 12 pages, Natalie Cole discography compiled and annotated by Kevin E. Taylor. The last 12 pages of Natalie Cole's book I wrote.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, I got to get that book.
That's the book that the movie's based off of.
Yeah, that was a classic and stuff, and I hope they actually put it out there and stuff, and re-released it and everything.
That book sold millions of copies. Like at the end of the day, people, and the audio book was recorded by Natalie, so it's on YouTube and you can listen to it. But she was just real. She was real. She was sweet. She was an LA girl, but she was real.
Yeah.
Real, like a little privacy. My mother turned 85. The year my mother turned 85, I went on social media and texted out people like, hey, if you get a chance, today's mama's 85th birthday, give her a buzz. And so on my mother's birthday, I would normally send her flowers, and about 5, 6 o'clock, she would get the flowers or get still enough to be able to call me and say, thank you for my flowers, baby. It got to 11 o'clock before I heard from my mother.
Wow.
And then she was like, baby, I'm sorry, I didn't call you earlier. Just been busy because everybody was calling her because we was throwing out the number to people to call her. She's like, from your church, the bishop called, and then your pastor from here called. She said, Biscuit was my son. She's like, Biscuit called me, and then so-and-so called, and then so-and-so. And then she said, now Natalie called me. Now, is she an usher or do she sing in the choir? I said, Mama, that was Natalie Cole. She said, no, this girl called, her name was Natalie. We talked for about an hour. I said, Mama, did she ask you for your zucchini and squash recipe? She said, yeah, how you know that? I said, remember when you met Natalie? She said she had to get your zucchini and squash recipe. Oh, Nat's baby called me. Said, get her back on the phone. I said, why, Mama? She said, because I didn't know I was talking to her. I said, but Mama, she knew she was talking to you. And I said, she said, but I would have asked her them something different. I said, Mama, Natalie Cole talked to you like she wanted to talk to you. And she talked to you for an hour because she wanted to talk to you for an hour. If you call her back, what you gonna say? She said, ooh, that maybe called me. To think like that for me was the greatest thing. That, and when Natalie was dealing with her kidney failure, and at one point she was on dialysis, my phone rang while I was writing a book at this little cafe I would go to write. They said Natalie. I was like, why'd you call me in the middle of the morning? I called and said, hey, and she just started talking, and we're talking and talking. I saved what I was writing and curled up, put my feet up on the couch. We're talking, and hour 1 becomes hour 2, hour 2 becomes hour 3. Then after hour 3, beep, beep. I said, Natalie, where are you? She said, I had to come to the hospital to get this dialysis, and I needed somebody to talk to. And I'm thinking, you know everybody. You called me to talk for 3 hours. Wow. She said, all right, well, let me let them get all this stuff. I'll call you later. I love you. And then I was like, and one of my friends walked in right after I hung up. I was like this, and they were like, you just got off the phone with Natalie Cole, did you? And I was like, why do you know that? I was like, because I ain't never seen your face look like this. Now imagine that the only thing that could do that is Natalie Cole. And I was like, what? And one time I was driving back to DC. She was in 2004. She was in her first full-on R&B show. She needed, she's like, find me a makeup artist. And I was like, I got Oprah and Michelle Obama's makeup artist. He in DC. He's coming. And then she said, well, come backstage and help me set up. And we did an interview and all this stuff. And then while we were, when she called me when I was on my way driving down, that's what it was. And I had to turn the radio down, but I answered it first so that she knew I was. And she goes, oh my God, what is all that noise you listening to? I said, you? She said, what do you mean? I said, listening to Natalie Live. She said, you still listen to that album? I said, anytime I'm driving from Jersey to DC, I listen to this album twice and I'm home.
Yeah.
I can't believe this. I said, Natalie, leave me alone now. You ain't gonna mess with my groove. My Drive to DC album is Natalie Live, and it has been since I moved up here. She went, okay.
Yeah. I tell you, I never forget. I think I saw her last, maybe one of her last interviews. She was on Whitney Wills, and she was promoting a Latin Spanish album. She wore like this red outfit and stuff. She looked good with that, you know. And when I saw her physical appearance and stuff, and I was like, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? You know,
Because Natalie's sickness caused her to lose weight, and that weight might have been 15 or 20 pounds. But Natalie Cole didn't have 15 or 20 pounds to lose. She was
yeah,
a tall, skinny woman. So when she lost 5 pounds, you could see it, you know? Be like, girl, you're shrinking away. She would have just lost 5 pounds in her regular life. So when she lost 20, she looked emaciated. And then, like I said, there were times when she would just barely have enough energy to get to the stage. But once she took the stage, it's like something clicked on. So it's not an accident that we're having this conversation today when tomorrow is 50 years since Inseparable dropped.
wow,
50 years. 50 years since we got Inseparable and Joey and I Can't Say No and This Will Be. I mean, the album that changed my life for 6 weeks, bro. People think it's silly, but I was a kid. For 6 weeks, I would only answer to Joey. My name is Kevin
wow,
Edward Taylor. But she sang that song, Joey. And I was like, my name's Joey. My mother would be like, Kevin Taylor, Kevin Edward Taylor. And I said, Joey, yes, ma'am. She's like, I'm going to beat you. And I was like, okay. You're going to beat Joey, though. You know, it felt very, my name is Toby. No, my name is Kuta Kinte. Your name is Toby. No, my name is Kuta Kinte. It felt like that. I was like, that. I even had a dream once. Like I told my mother that I had a dream about Natalie Cole. And my mother used to play the numbers, and I worked Natalie's name out in a numbers book. And I was like, Mama, I dreamt about Natalie Cole. She said, you probably always dream about that damn woman. And I was like, and the number's going to be 707 tonight. She's like, The number plays 707. And she was like, maybe next time you dream about that woman and you work out a number, give it to me. I was like, okay, I'm just telling you. I'm just, you know, we've always had a bunch of special moments. And so even last week, bro, I was flying back from LA, right? And I went into the bookstore because, you know, with the recent Met Gala that was this week,
yeah,
there's 4 black men on 4 different covers. And I wanted to buy all 4 covers. A$AP Rocky, Coleman Domingo, race car driver, Lewis Washington and Lewis Hamilton and Pharrell. And I wanted all 4 of them. I went into this bookstore, the second bookstore, because I got 2 of them. And I was looking for the other 2. I bought the other 2, took them to the counter. I was like, it was a book I was trying to buy. It was Beyonce's mama's book. I bought that. And then I was like, wait, that's Natalie Cole. Oh, that's nice. I'm in LA. Natalie Cole is playing. But it was like Our Love Is Here to Stay. So it was the jazz stuff. I was like, yeah, bookstore playing jazz. I get it. So he bagged the stuff up, asked if I wanted the bag, and then I heard the next song. And here comes Mr. Melody from the live album. And I was like, wait a minute.
wow.
So I then record like, yo, this Natalie Cole just went off and da-da-da. Now this is on. And I listened, I was like, Natalie's speaking. So clearly this isn't a Natalie Cole moment. This is a Natalie Cole playlist. So I'm going to stick around and see what plays next. Right? But I'm like this. Then Mr. Melody goes off and Inseparable comes on. And I'm like, okay, Natalie, what are you trying to tell me? Why you trying to talk to me? You trying to talk. So Inseparable plays, so I record another piece. Then I was like, okay, maybe it's just a threesome. Da-da-da-da-da. And then I've Got Love on My Mind came on. I was like, okay. I was like, what prayer am I not praying? What do I need to say? Because I went on, I was like, I'm about to sit down on this floor and miss my plane over music I already have. But to hear it playing like this, I know Natalie is speaking. I get on my direct flight from LA to Newark, New Jersey. We get diverted to Chicago. I'm like, oh, Lord, what we doing in Chicago? We sat there a few hours. Then I was like, Natalie was trying to speak. Now we're in Chicago. It's something wait a minute. Natalie Cole's musical career started in Chicago. Got it, Natalie. What are you trying to tell me? She's like, it's time to pivot. It's time to do something different in your career. I'll talk to you in a minute, but I'm just listen. And I was like, and so then when this happened, I'm like, here I am still speaking the name Natalie Cole. A week and a half later, she's in, she's speaking. She's all over.
Yeah.
And so it's just powerful that we could have met at any time. We could have spoken at any time, but it's the day
Yeah.
before 50th. This is even on the Natalie Cole site. The Natalie Cole group I'm a part of on Facebook. We're talking about Inseparable this weekend, and now we're having this conversation.
Wow, man. Ain't no but God aligned all that together. You know what I'm saying?
Oh God, so it's like, Natalie, I'm listening. Speak.
Yeah.
And this person came to me and said, "You're struggling with something. Ask the ancestors. You need to ask the ancestors." So for Natalie to be speaking this loud, I'm like, okay, 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 okay. You know.
Yeah, because that day I woke up and I saw a video and stuff, and this guy, though they mentioned, he was talking to her like if she was like a one or two hit wonder, and it sparked the nerve. I said, you know what, let me make a short little commentary video and clear the air and let people know how big deal she was and stuff. It's like we could talk about all the greats, but you gotta mention her because
And
she paved the way. She birthed out a lot of artists.
I mean, I'm here to tell you the Vanessa Williams, the Whitney Houston, the young girls who learned to do it with elegance and class and diversity. Like to know that Natalie Cole did mission, like Natalie Cole's #1 hits. Just look at, you can see the span of her career with "This Will Be," "Inseparable," "Sophisticated Lady," "Our Love." I mean, "I've Got Love in My Mind," "Our Love," Miss You Like Crazy." That includes R&B, funk, jazz, some jazz, pop. Mr. Miss You
Yep.
Like Crazy is like a national anthem in the Philippines. When Natalie hits the first chord, the crowd sings the whole song like they're karaoke.
Yeah, I tell you, her voice make you feel some type of way. If it's sad, party song, mood, whatever, it's like you ain't gotta go through nothing. You're like, oh my God, why I'm feeling this way and stuff. And then whatever you express as a dog, be like, dang, she was speaking my life into existence, even though it's just a written song.
Man, you want to hear what you just said? You got to be a black woman when Natalie Cole starts to sing "I'm Catching Hell." She said, "Tonight I want to talk tonight." Talk on, girl. I mean, literally, the first time I saw that, I was like, she having church at a concert because she started to sing that song, and her and that girl that sing that song would get to hollering and lamenting, because
Yeah.
a whole lot of songs are women talking about men doing them wrong. There are very few songs that became popular where the woman did wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And "I'm Catching Hell" is one of those. I pushed too hard. I was trying to be independent, but I needed him and didn't know how to say it, and now I'm catching hell. And for her, people only realize she almost couldn't leave certain concerts, especially in certain cities, without doing that song. And that was never a single.
Wow.
I remember one time Natalie told me that she said in the middle of it, she said, "So I'm going to go." Like that Sinbad show that she did, that Sinbad Summer Jam she did was in the middle of the tape.
Oh, okay, yeah, I remember that.
In the middle of a jazz tour, and Sinbad was like, "You got to be here, and don't bring Unforgettable. We don't want to hear that. We want Natalie Cole." Natalie Cole tore that place up so bad, that blue velvet 2-piece that beat the crew down that weekend. And one of my friends called me from Jamaica. He was like, "Kevin, I swear to you," it was in '96. "I knew your girl was a force to be reckoned with back in the day." He said, "But Natalie Cole, in the middle of this daggone jazz tour, came to Jamaica and destroyed this place." He said she sang "I'm Catching Hell" so bad that they couldn't get a shot of her singing without the other artists on the stage screaming at her. Chaco screaming, "Sing that song!" The Gap Band was like, because they were all glad to see her back.
Yeah.
The crowd was chanting at the end of it. Natalie, somebody asked Sinbad, "Give me the towel. Give me that towel that she wiped her face with." "Give you that? What, you crazy?" But the commentary, one of my friends, I remember because he got Natalie to send me a best wishes because I couldn't go because it was my housewarming weekend. I was like, of all the weekends, but they was like, "Man, your girl destroyed this place." And that's what I was like. I always loved that people would see big Natalie Cole moments. Even to this day, listen, people call me like, "Listen, I'm driving down the highway on Route 66 and your girl came on. I'm driving down the highway and Pink Cadillac came on. Driving down Sophisticated Lady, and every time I think of her, I think of you." That people say that blows my mind, that this multi-million selling person, is my friend, and people think of me because, when people was trying to dog Natalie Cole during her, drug epidemic era, that was like my senior year of high school. And people like, "Yeah, they call your girl the bass queen." or people be like, she ain't my favorite singer. I was like, that ain't the conversation. She my
Yeah.
favorite singer, and I ain't moving.
Yeah.
I'm not moving.
Ain't going nowhere.
Ain't going nowhere. So I remember once in DC, I saw her in August and July of the same year. She played one show in DC and one, I mean, at Constitution Hall and one in Boulder. My mom was like, you going to both? I've seen Natalie Cole twice in the same summer, Natalie Cole twice in the same week. And when she did Golden Nugget in Atlantic City, I saw Natalie Cole twice in the same night.
Wow.
And, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, she just got this type of surge, man. I don't know what it is. When it comes to a heartbreaking song or like a fast song, it's like when it gets to that bridge, I don't know where it comes from. It's like when she raised her voices up, it's like you just like, oh my God, this you just take your soul out of your whole body.
Man, so a lot of people, you want to talk about something. Every version of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds from the live album,
Yeah.
on the special, she did it, or it's been captured a couple of times in live recordings. Every time you do it, you could hear a black woman fantasizing. At the end, when she go, not pearls, but diamonds. Right. Now somebody would go, oh, like, oh, I can't believe she's singing like this. My sister, Betty Louise, God rest my sister's soul. My sister, after a bad day of work, when I was living in the projects and she had moved, she and her husband and kids living outside of DC, my sister would call and say, baby, put my record on. And I would have to put Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds on and put the phone by the speaker.
Right.
So she could hear her song. When I came back, my sister would be crying. And I was like, what are black women hearing in this song that I am missing? And it was, Lucy was a fantasy, was the idea of being able to get away from all of this, if only for these few minutes. Because my sister, I just remembered my sister wasn't emotional, but she would always be emotional listening to that record. I remember when I got the live album, back in the hood, you would put the speaker in the window.
I remember that.
I would put that speaker in the window the first weekend I got Natalie Live, and I played it out on the block. And there was just mothers bringing their chairs out, because most of the time you just let the kids sit out. But then women were sitting on the stoop because they wanted to hear the album. Ooh, that is sick. Ooh, I gotta get that. Ooh. Now, because there's some stuff on that thing vocally that's just treacherous. If you want to hear Natalie Cole sing, put on I Can't Say No. Her I Can't Say No into Something's Got a Hold on Me is enough to blow. Natalie Cole singing,
I gotta post it on my page.
Natalie Cole singing Something's Got a Hold on Me live is gospel at a level you ain't never heard it.
Wow.
She was a chameleon. She pulled in everything that she heard. And that's why people just like moved in disbelief. They were like, she didn't grow up in the church. Where did she get this from? Because her father's father was a preacher. Because she got in the music industry in Chicago. And she was in those churches. Because she married a preacher. Like, this will be an everlasting love. This will be the one I've waited for. This will be the first time anyone has loved me. If that ain't gospel enough, it is. I'm so glad he found me in time. I'm so glad that he rectified my mind. A preacher wrote that. The Reverend Marvin Yancey and Chuck Jackson wrote that. And then that church, that ain't nothing but church.
Yeah, ain't nothing but church. Hey, church stuff. Yeah, before we wrap up on her to talk about your journey in this business and stuff, if she was around today, what would you think she would talk to you, like the conversation and stuff?
So if Natalie was that knocks the wind out of me just a little. If she were around today, she would have gotten Natalie would have gotten her country album done. She would have gotten her bossa nova Brazilian album done, and she'd be ready. She would be triumphantly like in R&B again, doing some of those classics like, anime and sophisticated. She would have found her new voice to be able to talk, in R&B again. And what she'd be talking about, now, if anybody would have been prepared to do like an artist development Legends Masterclass school, it would have been Natalie. It would have been Natalie. Natalie Cole, Natalie Cole was willing to pull coattails. The reason the Grammys dogged Natalie, didn't do right by her, is because Natalie Maria Cole called out the Grammys because the Grammys and Amy Winehouse's team took her out of rehab to perform and win her Grammys that year. And in a year's time, she was dead.
Wow.
She called him out. She said, if people like you did drugs, she's like, and that's why I'm saying this. I can say this, that they should not have done that. And all of a sudden, you know, she was persona non grata. All of a sudden, it was, oh, she doesn't need much of a tribute because they trying to hold a grudge. If they had treated Natalie Cole like she deserved, David Bowie got a tribute. David Bowie has 1 Grammy. Natalie has 9 Grammys in 4 categories and 21 nominations. She deserved better. But by now, she would have, you know, Natalie had always talked about, and one time I had put together this almost podcast of the Natalie Cole gems that she should be doing in a like a B-side concert, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I sent that to her, and she's like, "Ooh, there's some good stuff on here." That's why I was so happy to hear "Keeping the Light" because that was one of the ones I suggested. But when I talk to people about Natalie Cole, almost every other person said, "You want to know what my favorite song is?" I said, "La Costa." They were like, "How you know?" I said, "Because it's mine." Because it's mine. I went to see Natalie once, and the only one of her songs that she did was La Costa. And it was a Sunday afternoon show with an all-white audience and me and my friend. And I'm covering my mouth. When I went backstage, she said, "I wasn't sure if you were here because I played your record and you didn't make any noise." I said, "Well, I didn't want to embarrass. Look, I said I didn't want to embarrass you in front of your white friends." And then she said, "Don't ever do that again. I put that in the show just for you because I needed to hear your voice." And so that to know that we had a needed to hear your voice kind of relationship. Even one time when Natalie, on her 55th birthday, I remember this, I called her because I hadn't heard from her about getting my flowers. And then I said, "Hey," we talked for a little bit. I said, "Did my flowers arrive yet?" She said, "No, I don't think so. I've only got 2 arrangements. I know one is from the church and one is, is from," and she said the name of the guy she was dating. I said, "What, what did you get?" She said, "Oh, it's a beautiful. It's white roses, calla lilies, and,
Wow.
and aster lilies." I said, "Natalie, please check that card."
Wow.
Because those flowers were from me, not her boyfriend.
Wow, man. You know,
She was like,
RIP
"That's
to the
not so
queen.
hard to date me because I got a you." And I was like, "What you want me to not treat you like you're my favorite singer in the world? What you want me to treat you like you ghost? That ain't what I do." So,
Oh man, yeah. I tell you, like if there was a picture for each celebrity that really brought style in class, as far as when it comes to representation, Natalie Cole has to be that one,
and let me tell you what it was represent. Natalie Cole was style and class, but she also taught a lot of women what sensuality was because she could wear a short dress, but everything else is covered. And you just loved her legs. I remember one time seeing her at Town Hall in New York, and it was her and Ray Charles, and she had on this red dress, curly, her hair was all curly, and it was skin tight. If you look up her singing with Pavarotti, she wore the same dress at that concert because Natalie loved redoing dresses. She was like, "I'm not throwing money around." And she walked out in this skin tight dress, and she was singing and singing and singing. And at one point during one of the breaks, this brother in the front, he said, "God damn it, girl, you in this dress!" And she was, the crowd roared, and she was like, "Stop it, stop!" And then she gave him a pose, "Take pictures, take pictures." "Okay, stop." And then I saw her once perform, down in the DC area, Wiltshire, and she came out in this skin tight gold Versace gown, half that slid up to that, and she came out singing "The Very Thought of You," and I forget to do the little ordinary things that anyone ought to do. And she da 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 da, and she comes to the front and gets midway through the song, and then when there's a bridge, the audience roared, and she was like, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Because there was nothing to be roaring about except that it was a beautiful da 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 da. And then she's like, "What's wrong?" And then because we're screaming, and then she just brings the band down to talk. And she goes, "What's happening?" That brother said, somebody's screaming, "Girl, you killing that dress!" And she was like, "Stop! What?" And then we roared, and she said, "Okay, no, I'm gonna stop acting up. So I'm gonna go backstage and we're gonna start over because you've seen the dress now." And then when she turned, her butt was sitting, because now they worked up. So her butt was sitting like a shelf. So the last thing she needed to do was turn around because then it was pow. This one brother, "Damn, girl," and fell out. So she just always had that kind of whimsy about her. But young ladies, like I was at lunch with her once, and Destiny's Child came by. And they were like, "Hi, Miss Natalie. Hi, Miss Natalie. Hi, Miss Natalie." Patrick Swayze came over and kissed her hand. "Hello, Natalie." And I was like, I'm sitting at the table on a Tuesday afternoon with Natalie Cole, and other celebrities are coming over to her table.
Wow. Now, you've been a writer and producer for television for over like 30 consecutive years, running a TaylorMade multimedia. You know, how did, your production, get started, as far as you being in the business?
Man, look, I'm trying to talk to anybody. That's why I love that you're doing this. If you got a dream, execute it. Figure out how. And you can do this. Y'all got all this access. We never had. I was working for the DC government for 8.5 years. Knew it was time to go because I knew I wasn't going to get to the next level for 10 years. And they were like, just stay and hold on to your good job. And I was like, no, I'm 26. I got to do something. So I ended up going to a temp agency that took me into BET. And I was like, because I was born and raised in DC. So I
Yeah.
knew the satellite. I was watching BET the first day it came on. I was like, oh my God. And so I was just glad to be in the building. So
Wow.
I was the executive assistant to the director of music programming, who at the time was Lydia N. Cole. When I went into interview with Miss Cole, she interviewed me for about 35, 40 minutes. And then she said, do you have any questions? And I looked at her nameplate and I said, yes, ma'am. What does your middle initial stand for? She goes, I'm sorry. I
Wow.
said, what does your middle initial stand for? Because her name was Lydia N. Cole. She said, well, why would you ask me that? I said, because my favorite singer is Natalie Cole. And if your middle initial stands for Natalie, that means I'd be working for Lydia and Natalie Cole. And that'd be a sign from God that I'm supposed to work here. She said,
Wow.
really? She said, well, that's odd. But my middle name is Natalie. And the funny thing is, when most women get married, they take their last name as a new middle initial. But she liked Natalie so much that she kept it and dropped her maiden name Jones and Natalie Cole. So I started working with her. I'm her executive assistant for a year. The next year, she's like, I feel like I'm going to lose you because I'm doing filing and all of this stuff. And I'm finished sometimes by 12, 1 o'clock. Because I'm already, I'm young, but I've been in the office since I was 17, working since I was 12. And so I
Wow.
get a report done. And so I said, I saw this job description for the record label leads on and music researcher. She goes, but yeah, the reason we haven't fulfilled that position yet is because we're worried about payola because it covers the playlist and it covers what stuff goes in the video review lead.
Wow.
And I said, but Miss Cole, I do this job already as your assistant. She went, and went to her boss and got me a big raise. And so I now became Kevin E. Taylor, record label liaison and music researcher. And then she goes on maternity leave the next year, and the
Yeah.
new woman who was running entertainment now takes over music. And then she's the one who said, go home and write questions for Natalie Cole. And I bring her back, these factoids about what was it like to be the first Black artist to win Best New Artist? What was it like to be the first Black woman to win Album of the Year? And she's like, I didn't know these things. And then she said, I've decided who's doing the interview. And I'm thinking, it's BET. Of course, it's going to be Donnie Simpson. And she said, you. And I said, for what? Like literally, for what show? I said, for what program? She said, I don't know. Create it. And I created a show called Lyrically Speaking.
Wow.
Thinking, honestly, bro, it's going to be my only production. I think she let me do it. Everybody knows how much I love Natalie Cole since I was a kid. She's doing it to be nice. Then Luther Vandross came calling. Then Anita Baker. Then Lena Horne. Then Patti LaBelle and Stevie Wonder in the same week. Then I went to Germany to see Tina Turner in concert, then flew with her, then flew to Denmark to interview her. But in the middle of that, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis's company called and said, so how much would you charge us to do EPK? And I was like, what's the EPK? What's the EPK? EPK. And they showed me one. It's what the electronic press kit. It's like a 10-minute story of the project. And then I said, well, I've never, I don't know how to do an EPK. To the woman from the label. She said, did you do that piece on Gordon Chambers on Music Inside Out? I said, yes. She said, we'd have paid you $10,000 to do that. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Wait, what? We're giving you a $10,000 budget to do that. And I was like, what? And so in 1994, working with Flight Time Music and Perspective Records, I flew to New York to do an interview at an EPK with the group Solo. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. I got it. So this group Solo, I did their first EPK, and my multimedia company was born. And so the good part was there was a point after I became a pastor when I was still in New Jersey where, I had left BET in 106 in Park, but BET, the network, called saying, so we give you some money. Will you do some programs? And I was like, what? So I ended up developing a show called Lifted with a guy named B. Slade, who was recording at the time as Tone. I did a show called Chronicles from the Underground, which is about
Oh,
unsigned
man.
and independent artists. But my hit for the network
Mhm.
was a show called Parallel Paths, where I brought two people together who did the same thing to interview each other. So I brought Kindred the Family Soul and Ashford and Simpson together to interview each other.
Okay, yeah, I'm still on TV. Yeah.
Flex and Shanice interviewed Kenny Lattimore and Shantae Moore. Let's see. Uh, uh, Andre DeShields and Desmond Richardson from Broadway interviewed each other. Intisake Shange and Bo Beasley interviewed each other. Hezekiah Walker and Ty Tribbett interviewed each other. And so I was trying to get Kenya Moore and Shirley Ralph interviewed each other. Niecy
Wow.
Nash and Keisha Sharp, who played Monaco and Good Friends, interviewed each other. So I was always trying to get people who did the same thing from different perspectives. Reverend Al Sharpton and Minister Jeff Johnson, who was a young activist, Talib Kweli and Dr. Cornel West.
Oh, man.
And it was one of the few interviews, and one of the only sit-down interviews, long form, with the reunited LaBelle when they went out for their tour. So basically, what he did was Patti LaBelle, Sarah Dash, and Nona Hendricks were interviewing each other.
Man, that's history right there. The books and stuff, you know. And I was reading your bio, and I was like, wait a minute now. This brother created access granted testimony. We already talk about lyrically speaking, and it notarized one of the top popular programs for BET. That is huge, man.
Let me tell you, I want to toot my own horn about notarized, just so I can honor BET in a very, very real way. Stephen Hill, Vice President of BET, comes in. He's like, you do specials, so you got to figure this out. I'm like, okay. We're doing 12 hours of programming to do a 100 video countdown. I was like, oh my God. He's like, and I want all the talent on it. I was like, I'm sorry, what? So that was, at the time, that was Hits from the Street. That was Tigger on the Underground. That was Cedar. Remember Cedar's World?
Yeah, I remember that.
That was Rachel on Planet Groove. That was
I remember that.
That was Rachel on Caribbean Rhythms even. That was Sherry Carter on video or video LP. That was Liza Michelle on All. That was Melanda on BET Next. It was like, and Stephen was like, we got 12 talent. I want 12 hours of television. And I go home and pray on the king. And all I was thinking is, well, what if somebody don't like one of the talent? Like, I'm going to turn the TV to see what else is on, and we might not get them back. So what ended up happening is I stayed at BET for 3 whole days trying to figure out how to count from 100 to 1 and throw it out of sequence so that people would go, wait, Tigger's on, and Tigger and Hits just did that introduction. Then the video came on, we came out of it with Cedar, and then she tossed it, we came out of it was Rachel. What is on? What's happening? How is all the time? Because Stephen wanted them one at a time, and I literally had to be like, all right, Hits in the Street, I need y'all to go out and record these stuff with Hits. Y'all are doing number 99, number 94, number 93, number 87, number 81, number 76. You know what I mean? And it was just like, did I get everything? So it was just like that. And it was so cool because the team was like, what do you need? I need you to shoot. What do you need? I just need you to cover me. I need to take a 5-minute nap. I need to go splash. I need to go downstairs and wash my behind. You know what I mean? It was like, it was 3 whole days. And one of the things that made me so proud of the show and wanted me to grind so hard is Stephen told me something that most of the people didn't know, most of the team. Stephen said, Kev, so we're gonna, he did the whole countdown. He said the big thing is that the #1 video of the 20th century is not Thriller. And I was like, everybody was, so that was part of our promo team. Part of the promo was the countdown. But we had a separate promo about Donnie Simpson returning to do the top 10 to end out the millennium, because his video solo ended in 95. And he had no goodbye. He had no presence on the air. So I was like, I'm bringing Donnie back.
Yeah.
I mean, it costs. And then look, let me tell you this. And Donnie was like, no, I don't need anything. I was like, no, you need a suit from your favorite designer. Get it and send me the bill, right? It's going to cost me such and such amount. I was like, we owe you. But the thing that made me want to do it is Stephen said, so here's how the #1 video goes. Donnie talks about the importance of music and history. Then each of the talent comes on and says something about music and history. And then Donnie comes back and says, that is why this moment is so important. Because the #1 video of the 20th century is not a music video, but rather a moment in history captured on video. Ladies and gentlemen, oh my God, this is the first time it's almost made me want to cry. Because Donnie said, ladies and gentlemen, the #1 video of the 20th century is the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech in its entirety. And so many of us had only gotten a minute or two on the news. We'd never seen the whole 8 minutes and 90, almost 9-minute speech. People wrote in saying that parties stopped when they realized what BET had done. We got so many letters, people going, it's 11 o'clock at night. I was stone drunk. And we had to turn the music down out of respect. So for that moment in time, we got BET got its biggest day of ratings. But more than that, there were people calling like, yo, I don't know who came up with that idea. But that was excellent. Now, BET hadn't gotten that kind of influx. And that was very much in tribute to the genius of Stephen Hill. He was like, we're gonna put the I Have a Dream. We got it, the full thing from the National Archives. And for the first time since it aired, live in April of '63, it was on television again. And Black people lost their minds in the best way. Party stopped. Clubs said that they turned the music off to let the video for 8.5 minutes.
Man, that's huge, man. I tell you, man. Big shout out to Stephen Hill, man.
It was huge. It was huge. And I appreciated his genius, but I also appreciated that he let me fly, because what he wanted was each of the talent in order. But I knew, what if somebody don't like Michelle? What if somebody don't like Cedar? They're gonna turn the channel and we never get them back. Yeah. So instead of letting them turn the channel, let's blow their minds. So like I remember when we got to number 25, Brandy and Monica, The Boy Is Mine. All of the female talent introduced it. You know what I'm saying? It's like up next, The Boy Is Mine, and the next one they're like, oh no, girl, wait a minute. The Boy Is Mine. Oh you know what I mean? And then Cedar's like, all of y'all back up. The Boy Is Mine. You know what I mean? So you saw all this, like, what is happening? And so literally people turned it on and could not turn it off. Could not.
Wow. Now you won a gold world medal for international program, especially for 24 hours with Drew Hill. Man, congratulations on that. And
we did a show called 24 Hours With that allowed us to just send a camera crew and field producer in the real life of artists. You know what I mean? It wasn't just a video shoot, but it was into the trailer and to the mall. And we're gonna go here and just surprise these people at this mall. And it was Drew Hill. It was like, y'all know the pandemonium y'all gonna call in Baltimore? Yep. You know what I mean? And just see them have joy. Like, come on, like it was their camera crew. And they could do anything they wanted. It was just, I was so proud of, because we were, I was a world gold medal. So we were up against programming from around the globe. And I was like, we won? It wasn't the silver. Right. We won the gold world medal. It just made me really proud to, like, that, and you'll see it later too. You're probably gonna say, I'm sorry to jump the shark. But I received double Image Award nominations. Remember I said my only one I wanted? Double Image Award nominations for 2001, because both my testimony interview with Mariah Carey and my Access granted with Mary J. Blige.
Oh, that was a classic.
And Aaliyah. It was like for these two shows. And I was like, not only was I nominated, I was nominated against myself. And it took Michael Jackson's 30th anniversary show. Remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
98 Degrees, Luther, Maya. It took Michael Jackson and every celebrity on earth to beat me.
Woo. Wow, man, that's when you won your award, did it kind of hit home for you where it was like, wow, I was that kid, I was dreaming about so much stuff, and like, wow, I can't believe it, man. This actually happened.
So there are public awards, like at the Image Award. I always thought that the thing I wanted was that we used to do a monthly team meeting at BET. And in 95, I started lyrically speaking in 93. In 95, and I think that was after I had done Stevie and Patty. I did Patty at her home and Stevie Wonder at SIR Studios in front of a live audience. Wasn't supposed to be a live audience, But because VH1 ran late with their interview, they had to start letting people into this event for Stevie. So when we went to change tape, I got applause, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's people behind me." We have our BET team meeting, and Jeffrey K. Lee, who is the Senior Vice President of Network Operations for Black Entertainment Television, called me up and hands me this, about this big, silver plaque for special program development.
Wow.
And he said to me in front of the entire company, "No one else will ever win this award."
Wow.
That was a level of wow that I couldn't even imagine in front of people who had once talked about me, people who were like, "How are you doing this? How does he get to do this?" Who had now become, "Oh man, I got ideas. Oh man, I'm gonna help you. Man, I want to work with you." And for my boss's boss to see that and say, "I said I had somebody go get a special award made for you." That it blows
huge,
that blew my mind. That the other thing, there was no, there was me and Montez Miller. Montez Miller, Detroit's own Montez Miller, helped field produce that for me because she was with Drew Hill because she worked for Island Records. But I think she came with me, but it might have been by myself. I went up on the stage, accepted the award, waved. Because there was, the thank yous were for people who weren't in the room, and it wasn't a broadcast. So it just felt disingenuous to say it. Too many thank yous, because it was like, I want to thank everybody from the BET squad and everybody that worked with this. And I said Montez's name. Montez Miller, I wish you were here. But that award in front of my peers at BET, that was a big deal. That was a huge,
wow.
Like, I'm a producer? How is this happening? I'm a producer. I'm interviewing Patti LaBelle in her house. She talking to me. Stevie Wonder making jokes with me. What is happening? It was all of, that Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis's Terry Lewis's company called and said, "Look, we want to hire you to do this thing and give you other money." What? Wait, what? I already work at BET. I already got the prize. I don't need no more money. Right? God's like, "Don't you own a house? Don't you want to pay for that house? Shut up, take the money." Oh, okay, you got me, Lord.
Cause I tell you though, cause like when I was a teenager in the '90s and stuff, I got the business independently. As far as like, I was a kid that used to take pictures like with the artists of the fan, like the meet and greets and stuff, back in the day. But watching BT, the programs that you produce and everything was going on, like hearing the Video Vibrations, Men I Love, or T Summit, and your shows all between. It was like,
Well,
it makes you feel proud to be black because of all the programs.
Right,
Yeah.
say that. Look, I'm working at BET, and I think it was 91, and so that means I had just started working at BET. Imagine sitting at your desk. Imagine Paul Porter is sitting in for Donnie Simpson, because Donnie had gone away for Labor Day, I think. Imagine Paul Porter is sitting in as host for Video Soul. Imagine that they play 3 songs back to back, and the final one is unforgettable. Like you said, it was playing everywhere.
Yeah.
Imagine they go back to Paul Porter in the studio, and Paul Porter on international television says, "That one was for BET's very own Kevin E. Taylor. Happy birthday, Kevin." Natalie Cole. And I was like, I was at my desk, and people knew to run because I was about to pass out. I was like, Paul Porter, who I know from DC Radio and from Video Vibrations and Midnight Love, just said my name on TV, connected to Natalie Cole. And the funny part is, this brother whose name I want to speak, this brother named Ronald Edwards, and I don't even remember where Ronald wrote me from, but he wrote me a BET saying I had never heard anybody else who was a big Natalie Cole fan. He's like, and I got this pen pal. He's like, when I come to DC, maybe we could meet because I have all of this Natalie Cole stuff on tape. And I was like, what? Somebody wrote me at BET because they heard my name mentioned. So,
Wow.
And then even for Natalie, it was a bit just like, so, for her, it was like everywhere I go, I speak your name, right? But to be at BET was, there were days at BET that you'd be at your desk working on a format and look up and be like, hello. And Genuine's label had just come to bring him to introduce him to everybody. So here's Genuine. You go to the, you walking down the hall, excuse me, where's the bathroom? You turn around, there's Tupac. You just passed it, but you got to turn left there. Oh, all right. When I come out, you show me around. People, because it was black, BET was tantamount to Boomerang, the movie. There's black companies, young black people everywhere.
Yeah.
So artists would come to town, and they didn't want to just be in the green room. They'd be like, can we see everything? One time, Janet Jackson came to town just to thank BET for their support. She didn't want a camera crew there. but she met everybody from Bob Johnson to Miss Minnie and Mr. Isaiah, the cleaning crew.
Wow.
Everybody.
Yeah, wow.
Be
That's what.
like that in the culture. We were the culture.
Yep. That's what I like about BT in the '90s, because like whatever movie was getting ready to come out or was already out, they always had like the behind the scenes. I remember my very first memory was House Party, and they had like the behind the scenes of it and stuff. As a kid, I'm looking like, wow, man, this is like amazing, you know. And so I was more infatuated with behind the scenes than I was actually watching the movie, because it was so cool.
But that was the whole point of some of that stuff. It was like video
Yeah.
was to get you to see your artists as real people just sitting down on the couch. The behind the scenes stuff was to be like my first access granted was Mary J. Blige's Your Child. But my mentor, Billy Woodruff, is the director. So he's giving me access that he wouldn't give anybody, because it's me and it's him.
Yeah.
Mary, because she trusts Billy, is let me like, she's like, so this wig is for the one character. This one's for another. Then she did like a Make-A-Wish thing, off camera. But she let us, be there. If the family was okay with it, she was okay with it. So she just gave us all of this access. So, when Mary came into the game, Mary was kind of rough. But by this time, Mary's, she's polished. She's a superstar. But she was still very humble. She was still very like, she would grab your arm when she was coming down the stairs, and she's like, "Child, I'm still getting used to these heels." It was just that kind of stuff that you could do with the family. Because when she got on the sidewalk, she's like, pow, pow. But them little steps in Brooklyn, she wasn't wrong to not be. She had to turn her feet sideways.
Yeah.
You couldn't see that stuff except for with us. And the beautiful thing is, like, the other thing about the behind the scenes, which is why it's so cool seeing you do this, is because you meet Billy Woodruff, because you see the director of photography, because you see Black people doing all these other things, you get to realize it's all these other things. It's not, I just want to be the singer. It's like, I want to be Billy Woodruff. I want to be the DOP. How you get to be a grip? I want to do that. So we had a lot of people who at first were thinking, I ain't nobody want to do an internship, to how do I just get in as a production assistant? Because once I get in, I'm in. I was like, they were like, but you don't understand that, because you probably went to school for this. I was like, I came into BET as a temp. I came in here because I earned my way. I understand exactly what you're saying. But that music library, that research library that's 2 cabinets big, I got that out of the magazines, out of the trunk of my house.
Wow.
I sat down all weekend. I was like, Janet Jackson, pull all the Janet, all the Michael. Oh, there's a little thing about Mickey Howard, save that. So I literally made it from old Jets, old Ebony's, Sepias, Black History, Black Stars, Soul Magazine, Blues and Soul. I just kept all the Black magazines.
Oh, man, classic.
I knew I would need them for something. I couldn't imagine it was BET.
Woo. Yeah, I tell you, man. Yeah, because BET was like the social media, with the, some Word Up magazine, the Black Teen. I mean,
Word up, man. Right on and word up. Don't mess with me. That's
now,
right so
now
when people like Flo Anthony came to BET, I was like, oh my God. She's like, why do you know my name? I was like, because I've been reading Word Up magazine since I was a kid. Now you're a real person. So it wasn't just star. It was, I've seen your name. When I met Sylvia Rome from Atlantic Records, you couldn't have told me I met Natalie Cole 2.0.
Wow.
In Vogue, when they won their Billboard Award, they sang your name. She said, you remember that? I was like, everybody remembers In Vogue singing their acceptance speech. What are you talking about?
Now you founded the Boom Agency. How did that got started?
Oh, literally, that's brand new. I've been working for the last 10 years in social services. I ran a women's and children's shelter for 5 years. I worked with another organization working in LGBTQ services, in development, fundraising. And so when the start of the year, it was time to step out on my own. And I was like, I want to help people build opportunities and outcomes to manifestation. I've been doing so many things. Like in this week, I wrote a grant and I'm working on a project with an artist. I've written my own books. I've ghostwritten books. I've written grants. It's like my tagline is, we fill in the blanks and stand in the gaps. So there might be an organization that has a small team and says, we don't have a grant writer, hire me. So you don't need to hire a new employee. Just bring me in to do this service, get the grant and keep it moving. You want me to do weekend staff development with you and your team. Bring me in, have your retreat. We do that. So it's this opportunity to take all the skills that I've done since I've been working over the last 45 years, and I'm 60, and help pass it on. Because I think one of the things where we struggle as Black folk is, as creators sometimes we don't know how to be mentored. So often we feel like if I talk to you, you think I already know. And I was like, I'm not going to talk to Stevie Wonder and not sit at his feet and ask him about the industry if I'm a singer. I'm not going to sit with somebody who is a pantheon in what I do, younger or older. And Billy Woodruff is younger than me, but when I was working at BET, my boss was like, you can learn anything you want as long as you're at this desk at 9 o'clock. I would sit in edit sessions with Billy Woodruff from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Go home, make breakfast, shower, change clothes, and be back at my desk. And I wasn't drunk, I wasn't tired. It was just kind of, I want to do it. So the exhilaration of it does. So there's so many ways that I get to fill in the blanks for people who think, well, it's about who you know. No, it's like, it's not who you know, it's what you bring. If you don't show up with your A game, it doesn't matter. Bill Cosby said that once when he was on Natalie Show on Big Break. He didn't perform, he just talked to with her. And he's like, one of the things he said that I took to heart, that was 90, before I got to BET. Bill Cosby said, you don't have the right to be afraid. This is your opportunity. Show up. And I was like, you are right. So when Natalie Cole says, what is your question? I was like, the one question I got might sound crazy, but it's all I got. Natalie Cole, right?
Yeah.
All I got. But then when I get the interview and people are, ooh, great show, big ratings. Now do some more stuff. We want to bring you. You want me to produce some more stuff? That's it. Before I'm doing Luther, doing Anita, and then they're like, hey, we want you to do a segment on Music Inside Out. We want you to do a segment on Flavor in Your Ear. We want you, what? That's what I keep thinking. What? So I founded the Boom Agency because when I finished preaching, when I finished speaking, when I finished passing advice on the people, I go, you got it? You sure? Boom. Like, seal it in. You know what I mean? And so I wanted the agency to have that effect on people. Like, you got a great idea, you got a great vision, and I will help you blow it up.
Wow. That's also good stuff, before I wrap it up, what you got going next?
So I'm working on my first novel, Jaded.
Good.
I'm hoping that will be a motion picture in the next 18 months. I am working on an artist book. Hopefully I'll sign another contract because I do ghostwriting, which is where I can do this kind of conversation with people and help them shape their book, because.
Oh, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm working on those. I'm working on, I feel like I'm missing something. I'm working on, look, 1, 2, 3, 4 books are open right now. I got 4 tabs, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And depending on the day and what I'm feeling, I will open one of them and write. So the book I'm really excited about that I will say out loud that's probably going to be out before 2025. It's called Fame Adjacent: How My Behind the Scenes Career Helped Me Step into My Own Spotlight. Because of all of this stuff that I'm okay in public speaking, I'm okay preaching, I'm okay on television, I'm okay engaging people, because being behind the scenes made me see how important all the parts are. So when people get nervous looking into the camera, I'm thinking about the cameraman on the other side, so that I've got a physical person to consider, not, oh, I'm scared, where do I look? Like, it's just us in this room.
Yeah.
But that thing also helped when I brought artists in to do interviews. I introduced them to the crew so that they feel like, okay, yeah, okay. So it doesn't feel just kind of like me and this reporter that I don't know. It's like, no, this is me, a journalist, being a producer who's trying to make sure that I look good, sound good, and these people want to make sure that I feel safe, feel good. So because of that, I was able to do a show called Now What with Kevin E. Taylor that I did in 2014, 2015, that I'm probably going to bring back this summer to do some interview stuff. I got a couple of artists who have a couple of projects we want to work on that maybe we'll come together and talk about. But it's always kind of, as the word says, cast the net wide, because I've been in the government and entertainment and social services and LGBTQ services. It's about, how can I be useful? How can I be useful? I'm 60 years old now, and I'm thinking, what's this season of my life about? It is about how do you pass it on to somebody else. That's why, when Montez saw the teaser you did about Natalie Cole, and she said you should talk to Kevin Taylor about Natalie, and then that happened the day before Natalie Cole's album dropped 50 years ago. That's the ancestors aligned in this song, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, because it just clicked in my head because I was like, who could I talk about next? Then when I saw some guy, you know, that was like this instead of this, you know, I was like, okay, I know exactly what I need to do. It's like we always got, you know, because what us black people, we always got to protect our own, you know,
Yep.
when it comes to situations like that.
And that's why that you know, I told you before. That's why this is my Natalie Cole jacket. I love walking down the street in public places with people on the back of the jacket. Let me take it off so I can show it to you. Right?
Yeah, that's a bad jacket right there.
My sister Asabi makes these jackets where you know you got to do the graphics, and then you know this is like a bomber jacket, but it's lighter. You know what I mean? And so you do the design, and so this is Natalie from her last project, Natalie Cole in Espanol.
Oh wow!
This is Natalie Cole. God, is this 2000? I don't remember which project it's from. It's just my favorite. One of my favorite pictures of her. A beautiful smile.
It looks like they're like the Leave It era or something like that.
That's it. It's the Leave It era thing. And then here's the back. I sat down and laid out every single. This will be Inseparable, Joey, Mr. Melody, Sophisticated Lady. I got all of them laid out. And that is the legacy of Natalie Maria Cole.
Oh man, all the eras of her, man, that's amazing. Wow.
And so it's beautiful for me to be walking down the street and have people be like, man, where you get that? I was like, when you love somebody, you make something, you don't get it.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't get that. Yeah.
That's the, you know, that picture right there, probably one of my favorites, is the Natalie Cole special. There it is, that one.
Okay, yeah.
You know, this beautiful one right here is the Take a Look album. And I love that so much. So I love the Take a Look picture so much. So watch this. I had a painting of it commissioned. See that?
Okay, I see it right there. Wow.
That's all Natalie Cole. Yep.
Yeah, my mother, my aunt, every since I know had that hairstyle, even like the black and white picture back of that jacket.
Oh, man, how about this though? You wanna really see Natalie Cole's impact? Watch the Jeffersons. When Natalie Cole changed her hair, so did Helen Willis.
Oh, I gotta check it out.
Helen Willis. Natalie was snatchback, Natalie snatchback. Natalie flip, Helen Willis. Natalie, everything Natalie Cole did, the black hairstylist on that show did to Helen Willis.
Oh wow, man.
Lenny Kravitz's mama.
Yeah, man, God bless it. Wow, I just realized, yeah, it's been 30 years since, she's been gone. Well, going on 30 years, one or two and stuff, you know.
Ooh.
Man.
Right.
Before I wrap it up, I want to say thank you for taking the time coming on here and stuff, man. It's crazy how, you know, God put us, you know, sit together and talk about her story, talk about your history, because you, my brother, like the stuff you brought to the table, man, for the culture, man, is like forever lasting, you know, just like it's like an appetite. And, you know, because you are definitely important. And I thought to myself, say, dang, man, like if we never want to be in the business, BT probably lost a chunk of what could have been, you know, especially because of potentials.
Let me tell you for real quick, bro. I knew that my time at BET was destined. When I first got there, I was kind of a walking music researcher before I got the job, because the team would be writing and they would be like, when did Aretha Franklin record Respect? I was like, April 1967. When is such and such? And they were like, why do you know all of this stuff? I was like, it's Black history. That's why. So, you know, when we were doing like one of the specials, they were like, well, what was the first video played on the network? I was like, After the Love Is Gone, Wind and Fire. Don't you remember where you were when BET came on? Because I do. So for me to be inside it and then in the mix of it, it is a thing that I couldn't hold the culture hostage because it's the culture. So when BET called, you know, I was running the shelter. They're like, Kev, you get ready to do this 40th anniversary special. We need you. I was like, half of the stuff. Look, I showed up like this, bro. I was like, all right, what we doing? Like, everything I ever worked on, I got on a jump drive.
Stay ready.
So I really got that in. I had it digitized on the jump drive, so I could plug that that in. And so some of the things I'm looking for, especially if I produce it, I was like, oh no, I got that. So we had to get some other stuff, but it was just kind of like there was nothing that we did that for me could in any way feel like it was not important, because I know what it was like to be sitting at my desk and have celebrities want to walk through. Like, can I see upstairs? Can we go meet the people? Because they had never been anywhere. Almost everybody they saw was black who was working in front of the camera,
Wow.
scenes, in the makeup room, in the production room, in the control room, at the secretary desk, at the front desk, in the executive office. It was like, but that's really why BET was called. I mean, why BET looked like DC, which was Chocolate City. So you wouldn't be like everybody, because if you went over to corporate headquarters, you might see more diversity. You know, you might see some folk from different. But I'm telling you, in net ops, in network operations, most of us were black folk, black people. So like, you know, when we Friday evenings, half the time after we had finished production, we would be sitting in the net ops room planning where we were going to go to hangouts. After a while, every Friday at BET that wasn't payday was a barbecue.
Wow.
In the summer, we sat outside and they served because we there were almost few people who understood what we were doing, like us. But I'm gonna tell you what, real quick. When BET team members, like the sports team, used to travel in their BET like varsity jackets, they would get in hotels and get upgraded.
Wow.
They would be put on camera at an HBCU because they had on their BET jacket. Like, I understand this opportunity and what it means to and for the culture. And because our culture is so rich and so important, you know, there are conversations about how do we build something new? Because, you know, as they're trying to erase our history from every book they can, they're trying to act like slavery didn't happen, Jim Crow didn't happen, racism didn't happen, American apartheid isn't happening, white supremacy isn't happening. When they talk about us not being in the fight, it's like, because we got something else to do, because y'all sitting by while they erase our history. Y'all ain't picking it. Y'all ain't saying nothing. You're not saying, oh, I didn't know. Well, you know now, then you still ain't saying nothing. So we have to say something. We have to do something. And that's what we're busy doing. We ain't got time for Trump. Y'all picked him, y'all deal with it.
Yep. Absolutely, facts. Yeah, man.
But in the meantime, we're building. So, you know, building opportunities and outcomes to manifestation. Boom. That's what I'm working on. I'm working on all of the ways. You know, I'm working on Fame Adjacent so that somebody can see. You know, Fame Adjacent for me as a book started because I can't remember who it was, but somebody was with me when I met you know, when I was with somebody and some celebrity was like, hey, Kevin. Oh, I saw him at some event. And they were like, do you know everybody? And I was like, of course not. But it made me sit down and list all the people I've ever met. Because, you know, I'm in music. I don't know Halle Berry. I don't know, you know, actors and actresses. But some of them showed up at 106 in Park. But I've done it. But some of them recorded albums. So that's how I know Jamie Foxx. So it's make a list of everybody I'd ever met who was famous. And you know what really sparked it? I swear to shut up. I was in high school. No BET, no ever met a celebrity, anything. And I was going to work at my DC government job, and I was early, so I got off in Georgetown just so I could walk around. I was gonna get my bus pass, get back on the bus, and hurry up to work. But I got let out of one of my classes, so I had an extra hour. So I said I'll just walk around. I was walking through Georgetown, this really frou-frou town section of DC, and I saw this white limo coming, and I just waved because it was a limo. I had no idea if it was just a limo driver. I just waved because I was feeling silly. I was in 11th grade. The back window opens. This fabulous hat comes through. This Patty LaBelle. Hey, sweetie. I was like, hi, Miss LaBelle. Hi. And then, you know, she just blew kisses. And, you know, the car just kept moving. I was like, oh my God, I just saw Patty LaBelle. I didn't get to meet her. I just saw her. Fast forward 2000. It's probably 2000, 2001. Nope, I'm in New Brunswick. So I'm working on my own production stuff for BET. So it's like 2004, and I'm on the east side by the United Nations, walking to the production house. Took the train, now I'm walking there, and this Cadillac Escalade limo, you know those are huge, turns in front of me. The back window comes down, and my friend Derek Rutledge, who is this really famous makeup artist, works for Oprah, works for Michelle Obama, Patty herself. Derek rolls out the window. He goes, you know, you were right. He goes, Kevin, hey. I go, hey, Derek. And he says to somebody, you were right. The back window rolls down. There's Patty LaBelle. I told him that,
Wow.
hey, sweetie. And she comes and takes my hand in her face and kisses me. And I'm like, wait a minute. Derek Rutledge and Patti LaBelle were in the back of a Cadillac Escalade limo. I know Derek. Derek been in a house. And it was Patti LaBelle that recognized me. That's gangster.
Man,
Gangster.
that's gangster right there, man.
Gangster. One time I was going to be doing a Christmas special at Kirk Franklin's house with his family. So I just wanted to go introduce myself because Kirk Franklin, Fred Hammond, and Yolanda Adams were on this tour called Hopeville. And so I went to the show, great show. But I only was going backstage. I wanted to enjoy the show, I only went backstage so he knew my face because me and the camera crew were showing up at his house, to do a Christmas special. And I wanted him to know who was coming to his house before I got there. That's me. And so I'm walking towards Kirk's dressing room. And I hear somebody going, Kevin. I don't know anybody here. So I'm walking towards Kirk, and the security walked up to me. He goes, you Kevin Taylor? And I go, yes. He goes, Miss Adams is calling you. And, I go to her dressing room. She said, Kevin, didn't you hear me calling you? And I said, Yolanda, we met once a month and a half ago for about 8 minutes. I didn't think you were calling me. And Yolanda Adams said something that, along with her and Tina Turner, fixed some stuff in me about me. Because Yolanda Adams said, you don't think people can forget you, do you?
Wow.
We met for 8 minutes. She said, you don't think people can forget you, do you? And I was like, yeah. So it's one of those moments where people, almost like the computer started to download these things from people that, like Tina Turner, you're different. You're not like everybody else. And my boss explaining why she said that to me. And me finally going, oh, different's not bad. Different is singular. Different is individual. It's unforgettable. And so it's one of those things that rectified my mind. Hello.
Yeah, there you go.
So
Man,
keep doing this, because what I want to say to people is that if that me had this outlet, and you can imagine getting behind the scenes footage from all of these things on my own camera and being able to say, man, to be able, to be in Germany with Tina Turner and to go back, to meet her, and we're in this little town called Bremen, and I was like, I thought Tina Turner was famous over here. This town ain't big, ain't nobody outside. When we get to the football stadium, everybody is in the football stadium. It must have been 100,000 people in this window. I was like, oh my God. I was like, how do you perform to this many people? It was a football stadium. But they put me, Verna Dickerson, who was my executive producer, and Lynn Norman from Ebony, with her audio crew under the shell, because they need to be able to hear. So they're under a shell where everybody else is out, right? And so, we having a good time. We get backstage, get to do it. Tina Turner, hello, darling. And I was like, what do you do with that? I take her hands. She pulls me into her and kisses me. She said, enjoy yourself tonight. And I was like, yes, ma'am, I will. Then when we get to Denmark, she said, did you enjoy yourself last night? I said, I did. Ooh, I had such a good time. She said, I know, I heard you. And I was like, you were in a football stadium filled with 100,000 people. There's no way you heard me. But then I forget that my voice is in the shell. So when I'm screaming like a black boy, she could hear me. She said, I heard you. You said, sing that song, bitch. She said, I sang that song. I said, oh my God, Miss Turner, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She said, no. You reminded me of Nutbush. I sat down and I sang that song because she did a version of Help by the Beatles. This black dude, Kenny Moore, God rest his soul, on piano, God rest her soul. And the two of them went to church. And I was like, this is Tina Turner singing like that. Because, she's the rock queen. Right. I was young. I mean, they took that thing to church. And I was like, sing that damn song. And so she's like, I heard you. And it's just those moments when the artist says, I remember going to see Rochelle Farrell at a place called Nell's in New York City. And I gotten in, the place is packed. I found myself a spot at the bar because it was this album release thing. And she goes to this song called I Can Explain. And she said, we're going to the next song. And she went, and I went, oh. And she said, I knew you were here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's Kevin Taylor. And the only reason this song gets recorded is because 8 years ago, I did it on video. So, and every time I see Kevin, he begs me to record the song. So, Kevin, for you, and I almost blacked out So to realize that I get to have moments like that. Christopher Williams coming on and said, "Don't wait, hey Kevin," and I'm like, it's a theater full of people. Why you calling me? Like the fact that people can see me, it's crazy. Martha Wash at a big festival event. She goes, "I see you. I carry. You better come backstage." And I'm like,
Yeah.
It's that Yolanda. You don't think people can forget you. You're different. And so it's the stuff that keeps me going, keeps me moving, and keeps me building, even when people think all these platinum records and all this stuff is enough. I'm like, I'm not dead. God's not done.
Yeah, amen. Amen. I tell you, you got an incredible story. And I tell you, my brother, like you definitely live. I tell you to be a part of so many different eras. I mean, it could be like a whole like if there was a new biography of your life, they had to do like a mini series because it's so much to fill
Well, I
out.
mean, I'm telling you, I would say that because for that little boy from the projects to then go to college, then go to college for accounting, English and Spanish, to then be a budget analyst, to then leave there by the grace of God, and that takes me into BET. And I was like, I can hide in the back. I'm just glad to be here. God was like, if I brought you here to be in the back, then what would the blessing be? So watch this. Watch this. So the stuff that is happening in that makes no sense, you know. So I understand the grace of God because, bro, you know, I was you remember I created Access Granted.
Yeah.
Aaliyah's last shoot was Access Granted.
Wow.
I was supposed to
Yeah.
be on that plane with Aaliyah, and
Oh wow.
but because I had to preach in Baltimore, and because her team wanted her to have her privacy, they put me on a separate plane earlier. By the time I got from the Bahamas to Miami to Baltimore, where I was preaching, two of my team members met me there. We went to dinner. I got back from dinner. My phone started blowing up. They were like, "Are you okay?" And I didn't realize my boss from BET, Penny McDonald, was calling because she knew I was supposed to be with Aaliyah. So if I
Wow.
was okay, she assumed Aaliyah would be okay. And I was like, she's like, "Well, there's some news." And I was like, "Oh, I did early." She was like, "Oh, crap." Not with an S. Crap. Because it could still be true because I wasn't on the plane. Then the record label called Diane Blankenship, and she was like, okay, you're okay. And I was like, yeah, but they put me on an earlier flight. And she was like, Jesus. Then my phone rang, and it was my mother. But when I picked up the phone, Rashad, it wasn't my mother.
Wow.
Somebody said, hold on for your mother. Like they wanted her to, you call. Because if he don't answer, you know what I mean? So when I answered, they just handed my mother said, baby, I think that girl you was just with, I think she gone. And I was like, you know how people say that? Well, no, I was just with, no, this doesn't make any sense. No, I waved at her, got on a tiny little plane from the Bahamas that shook the whole time, and I thought I was going to vomit. Then we got to Miami, got on a big plane. I was like, I'm okay now. But I was like, I just saw her this morning. You know what I mean? It's just, it wasn't making any sense. And then 18 days, you know, we do all of the stuff. And, you know, because I had the last footage of her, it was supposed to be with her. BET's got me on all these TV, I'm on VH1, MTV, Entertainment Tonight. I was everywhere. Press outside my door. They locked me away for a week, saying just get it together. Then, you know, the next week I came back to work and they were like, "Are you ready to shoot again? Are you okay?" After 3 weeks, and I was like, "I get it. It's a lot happening, but nothing happened to me, so I don't know how to feel because all I got to survive is guilt. Because I don't just know the Aaliyah. I know Aaliyah, Doug, Anthony, Eric, Keith, Scott, and
Wow.
and Gina. I know the other people, you know? And so after all of that, it's like, okay, well, we're going to send you to LA to do a shoot. I'm like, oh, good. It's me. It's New York to LA. It's going to be a big plane. I don't have to worry about that. And so my boss says, oh, this is stupid. They have you leaving out of Newark and you live in Harlem. You would end up all morning trying to get to the plane. You know what I mean? Let me just get your flight out of LaGuardia. So on Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, 18 days after Aaliyah, I get on another flight for the first time. And we get put
Wow.
in Kansas City. And thankfully, the Michael Jackson crew that I lost at NAACP Image Awards, who was on the same plane, and one of the dudes that worked with me at BET found me in the airport because we saw each other. He said, Kev, we got another seat in the truck we rented. We're driving to LA because we don't know when flights are getting back up. You want to come with us? I was like, yep. And so we drove to LA, and I ended up staying there through the weekend because we didn't know when the airports were going to open again. So this excitement is also the grace of God. It's also the little boy from the project. It's also the grown man who's like, wow, when they say the devil is on your heel, it felt like, you know, there were people going, what is going on that this keeps coming at you? You want to know what happened? January 2001, I became a pastor. August 2001, Aaliyah. September 11, 2001. It felt like. And so to see Jill Scott, Maxwell, Brian Campbell, you know, people, my last 6 months physically as an employee at BET in 2002 was finishing a book.
Wow.
And prayer time with people. When I tell you celebrities are like, can you pray with me? They were just walking and pray with me. Maxwell pulled me into his dressing room. I was like, okay, God. I was like, and the funny part was God was like, Kevin, what else do you need? Like, what else have you, what interview do you need? What program do you need before I can get you back to do ministry? And I was like, and then I went to my boss, Penny McDonald, when I made up my mind that I was going to leave so I could focus on church for a little bit. And she said, all right, just stay with us till we move from 106 and Park to the CBS building. She said, I want you here for the move. If you stay for the move, then help us move and help us get everything right. Then I'll be okay. You okay? Stay till the move? I said, okay, we hugged. Stephen Hill got on the speaker saying, I know there's been conversation about us moving. The move is off. And so now the reason to stay is gone. She looked at me like, I was like, I know, right? I know. So we hugged. She's like, I guess it's time for you to go. We hugged. We talked a little bit more. And then Stephen Hill came on and said, the move is back on. She's like, get out of here. Go. And, you know, the end of that, you know, I think I gave him 2 weeks notice. And, you know, going to ministry. And then somebody from BET was like, well, could we get you to help with a telethon? Could we get you to help could you go down and do a gospel shoot in Miami? Okay. And then I came back from the gospel shoot. I was just supposed to have radio drops. I was supposed to have TV drops. But I'm the researcher. So if I got Karen Clark Sheehan or Kurt Franklin or Dietrich Haddon or Albertina Walker for half an hour, I'm gonna get 5 minutes worth of drops, and then I'm gonna do a full-length interview. So I came back with 25 specials, and they're like, well, when did you get the time to do that? I was like, while I was talking to them, we did a special. So they were like, you know what, we're gonna find some money for you to do some shows. So God, because I was like, God, because what had happened the day before was like about 1.5 years, 2 years of just sitting in ministry. I was like, God, I don't know how to say this, but I'm bored, and I don't like the idea that I'm waiting for people to have heartache in order for me to do something. God was like, well, produce something. I was like, you told me to stop producing. God said, no, I told you to leave BET as a full-time employee. I didn't tell you to, you work in an industry that's full of freelancers. I didn't tell you to stop producing. The next morning, the vice president from BET called and said, can we get you to do a shoot? I was like, okay, God. Okay. So that's, again, I'm going to say it again. That's why the day before the world discovered Natalie Cole 5 years ago, the fact that we're having this conversation after you post that thing about Natalie Cole. This is Natalie. This ain't the ancestors. This is Natalie herself. Y'all should go ahead and do it. Okay. So that's why.
Yeah, man. I tell you, man, it's double God's work, you know, and RP to the Queen, you know, for her spirit to allow us to come together, to God for, you know, to use me in a good way to make this happen, and for, you know, your girl to reach out for it to come together collectively. I mean, man, it's double God, man. You know, I don't know what would happen if I didn't do this, you know what I'm saying? So I'm blessed.
I don't know what would happen if you hadn't done the thing you did, you know, for Montez to be able to say, oh, no, you don't get to talk about Natalie Cole without Kevin.
Yeah. And big shout out to Montez.
Like I said, for her and the radio thing in the LA airport last Monday, I was like, what's going on, Natalie? All of this was leading us to this. Talk about Natalie some more, please. Talk about her some more, so that somebody in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame who gets to pick people goes, you know what? That's enough. This woman, she gave her life, heart and soul. This same woman gave us gave us Pink Cadillac, gave us I Live for Your Love, gave us Unforgettable, gave us Unpredictable, gave us Sophisticated Lady, gave us The Rest of the Night, gave us the Blues, gave us Take a Look, gave us Swinging Shepherd Blues. Natalie Cole needs to, you know, she inducted her own father into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and she built her own career.
Absolutely.
Her own career. While people were talking, Natalie spent most of her career being compared to either Aretha or her own father, while she was still making hit after hit after hit, while people were walking out of shows going, "Oh my God, that girl is good." You know, I used to love that. You couldn't stop my chest from puffing up with people going, you know, she acknowledged me in a concert when she was in New Brunswick once at the State Theater. She used to love to play there. She turned the lights up because I've got some friends in here tonight. You know, this was the first time my adopted son had ever gone to a concert. He's sitting beside
Wow.
me. We go to see Natalie Cole. I'm taking him backstage so he's gonna have that moment, but he gets to have the very public moment of, I have some friends out here. Turn the stage up, Kevin. Where are you? And I was like, here I am, baby. He's like, oh, damn. And then white people leaving going, well, your friends are there. That must be amazing. I'm like, isn't it? Because it's still blowing my mind. When Natalie did the Leaving album in 2006, she did a concert at the Apollo that was all R&B. When I'm telling you, she took I'm Catching Hell to church and they shouted afterwards. Then we do an after thing and she's changed clothes and we're in the back. And I go to and I meet her sister and I said, she goes, hi, I'm Timberland. I go, I'm Kevin Taylor, Kevin E. Taylor. She went, you're Kevin E. Taylor? She said, we thought you were a myth. We would call Natalie sometime and she would be reading your letters and crying. We thought you, what? You're Kevin? How did we not met you already? This is amazing. You know, her sister was like, hi, I want to hug you. And I was like, she's like, you have been a fan forever. I said, since I was 11 years old. 10. I realize now, because I used to say 75, but my birthday's not till September. So it was 10.
Wow.
She struck a chord, she struck a nerve. You know, if it were not for Natalie Cole, I don't know who I would be as a human being. I don't know what my life would have been. Because I wouldn't have, I don't know how I would have discovered college. Maybe a counselor would have said something, but you know how black boys can be left to their own devices. Even smart, they figured I would have figured it out, but Natalie Cole said it, and it pierced my 10-year-old brain. I was like, okay, Mom. When my mama came home from her third job, I was like, Mama, I'm going to college. My mom said, that's nice, baby. Because all she's thinking is, you smart, and the world going to bust that bubble at some point. But then I said at 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15 and 16, my mama sat me down to give me the hard black facts. I ain't got no money for college.
Yeah. What was going to do that?
And I was like, I know, Mama. That's why I'm smart. They'll give me a scholarship to go to college. I graduated number 23 in the class of 526.
Wow.
And all of that was rectified, inseparable. It was word. Natalie made me read about Dinah Washington and Ella Fitzgerald and her old father. And because I was already a library nerd, I was always in the library. And thank God I was never afraid of books. So, being able to take all of that and create this is nothing but the grace of God and an angel named Natalie. My angel on my shoulder, which is literally the name of her book. You know what I mean? She is the angel on my shoulder. And this is proof of that. Like from LA and all that music to you dropping that to us being here. So if this was so you keep going, if this is so you get encouraged, if this is so you figure out how to do this at the next level for you, then keep going.
Absolutely.
Natalie Maria Cole says so.
Yeah, because I've been praying at manifest since December last year, and I was like, God, whatever it is you want me to do, not just a personal life, but also career wise, hey, I will follow through. Saying once the stars align, hey, I'm looking forward to.
That's the thing. It's not what God whatever you want me to do. God said, you tell me what you want to do.
Here's what to do. Yeah.
Tell you this how this works for me. Most people, and that's why I'm gonna shut up. Most people do their New Year's resolutions in January because it's the beginning of the year. Yeah. I don't do mine until March because March 1st for me is the day that I say, Lord, this year I would like to blank. And I say it. God says, you tell me what you want to do. You tell me how you want to move. You show me how I can, how you want me to bless you. You march 1st. Then pray and be still for 3 days. You march 1st, then I'll show you how to march 4th.
Wow. That's deep.
That has worked for me for decades. You march 1st, be still for 3 days, then I'll show you how to march 4th. Because you get all of that. Is it going to happen? Did I mean that? Oh, wait a minute. One more thing. March 1st, God gave me the Boom Agency. The name, my friend was like, oh, let's get the website, the boom.agency. Now we got to build that up. It moved so fast that I've got clients before I had a logo.
Wow. Wow.
Because I got
That's
proof that
huge.
I can do the things I've been called to do. So ain't nobody looking for a website, and I just got printed materials today.
Yeah.
I'm learning today.
Cause I tell you, like, my platform been had it since September 3rd, 2016. And, my inspiration came from BET. When I saw in the 80s and 90s, all the programs you created and everybody that collaborated came from BET. I told my mother I had a dream. This was summer 91. I had a dream I was hosting I see the house show. He wasn't there. But I was a kid and stuff, and we was on the way to Win Dixie. This was Win Dixie was open then. And I told my mother, I said, I want to be a talk show host. And she looked at me like, for real? And I said, yeah. She said, well, son, you can be anything you want to be. And then I
That's
just
cool.
ran with that.
That's beautiful. And that's funny because as a kid, I was asthmatic, and DC summers are so hot that sometimes you can't breathe. The humidity is too high. My brothers would go outside and come back and be like, get some water. But like, Kevin, you can't come outside today. So what I used to do is interview people on our couch. So I've had a talk show since I was 11 years old. And who was my most frequent guest? Natalie Cole. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Natalie Cole. Because I could talk to her about anything, because every interview that she did in a printed magazine, I read. So I would ask her those questions because I knew the answers, and just be like, yeah. And then blah, blah, blah. And so for the first person I interviewed to be Natalie Cole, and now you tell me I want to do an interview, and then YouTube was birthed so you could do that.
Yeah.
Live was birthed so you could do that. The tools are here now so you could do that. Brother Ali, go do that.
That's amazing, man.
Get Montez Miller on and talk to her. That woman has had an
Yeah, I definitely got to get her on here. I definitely got to get her on here for sure. And stuff. Before we end this, want to say big shout outs to, Montez for, leading the comment. Yeah, and then a big shout out to Miss V, for setting this interview up and stuff. And it's amazing because I always say, I love to interview somebody that worked for BT or used to work for it and been part of the history and was just now getting started, even like during the height of it and stuff, and for you to break the culture, for what is that? Because I tell you, there be conversations like, oh man, remember access granted? Remember this and that, this and I say, yeah, man, and here we are now talking about it.
The first, that's the beauty, because like the first long form, the first full access granted happened in 2000. We had done it 3 years before that. Those little interstitials, Kelly Price, Deborah Cox, Shanice.
Okay, yeah.
Like minute and a half things between commercials, those behind the scenes thing. And then when Mary came and Billy was on the set, we were like, we got to make this a series. But Access Granted dropped 3 years before it was a series. It was just a series of interstitials between commercials before that.
Okay, now that makes sense. Okay, now I remember that. Yeah. So I used to be like, hey man, what's that right there? You know what I'm saying? And then
it was that computer-looking graphic, and then it was either Access Granted, Demo Deal Delivered. I remember that one, and then there was something else. Kelly Price, Will Smith, Deborah Cox, Shanice. I got all those on the reel somewhere. And so we were always trying to, notarize. Greg Trent came up with the title, and then I worked with 19, who was our graphic dude, to do that 100 clips. It took him a week, because if you look in the moving graphics of it, all 100 videos are in at some point. And to be able to have done some of this stuff is mind-boggling to me. And I love these conversations, because just like you, other people be like, I wish BET would go back to what it was. And I was like, you can't go back, but you can rebuild, you can renew, you can make something else. That's why I'm excited about this year. I don't normally go to the BET Awards. I could go this year because they're celebrating the 25th anniversary of 106 & Park. Free, AJ, Tigger, Jaleesa, Roxy, and Terrence J, Lil Bow Wow. Bow Wow's gonna be there. B2K, like, that's the era. B2K. When we were at 106 & Park, there was a girls' school. I'm sorry, there was a girls' school, a private parochial school upstairs. Those girls were sneaking in every way they could to try to be B2K. And I had a program that came back to my desk on the 3rd floor. I found a little girl hiding under my desk, and I was like, how you get here? Please take me in there. Please. I was like, unless you can get your mother on the phone to say you get to be here, you got to get out of here. But they were, little girls had money. I give you $100. I was like, why do you have $100 cash on you?
Wow.
But so it's DC and NetOps. It's 106 & Park. It's 106 in Park now in the CBS building. You know, down, you know, on 57th Street and 10th Avenue. BET's legacy is 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 undeniable. So to have a young brother like you talking about the impact of it while I was in it, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's
Those
crazy, man.
like 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 world premiere videos, like what it was like standing around when Lenny Kravitz "Are You Gonna Go My Way" came on. It was like people was like, yeah, Lenny's on all the shows with this joint. You know what I mean? He wasn't just a rock dude, but it was a song that was rock and soul and had some funk to it. But Vanessa Williams, Running Back to You, and when she did that, You Can't Just Diss Me. When that breakdown in the middle, and how
Yeah.
all of us would be listening to the song playing, and then when she did the breakdown, and by the way, this one's for you. Me, Billy Woodruff, Sunita Brooks, Randy Lee, people, Eric Ray, literally all over the company. You would just see us pop up and be like, ah. And then when the breakdown stopped, we just went back to work.
Wow.
But when the
Crazy.
breakdown happened, all of us was like getting it in because it was just fantastical to be working in that place.
Wow, that's amazing, man. Yeah, that's crazy, man. For to start with Video Soul, then a spin off Play the Groove, then turn back at Once in the Park. The evolution always continues, man. You know what I'm saying? That's for sure and stuff,
Hey, I
man.
love it, brother. Like, I love that you know 106 and I mean that you know Planet Groove. I hosted the Groovy Awards,
Yeah, I love Play the Groove.
and they were like, Kevin, bring a bunch of clothes tomorrow. You're gonna host a show with Rachel. And I was like, what? I'm on TV for 2 hours hosting a show with Rachel. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
They were like, and people were like, your clothes were nice. I was like, those are my clothes from my closet. They ain't give me no clothes. So and they didn't give me clothes or a script. Rachel had the script, and when they pitched to me, it was for me to ad lib. I had to
Wow.
drop facts about each artist, and it was really Rachel's like, you just doing all. I thought you were gonna have cards or something. I was like, no.
Yeah, I love Play the Groove. That was my favorite show. As much as I love Once in the Park, I like Play the Groove. You know what I'm
Planet
saying?
Groove with those live performances. People forget Erykah Badu debuted on Planet Groove 6 weeks before her album even dropped.
Wow.
Maxwell, Hassan Patterson. We had some phenomenal performances on that show.
Yeah, y'all
Corey
kicked
Glover,
out everything.
Corey Glover, the lead of Living Color, the rock band, did his
Yeah.
solo debut there. Planet Groove was the shizness.
It was. I love it though, because I remember the beginning of oh god, with Eric Benet's career, solo career, and man, it was just all that stuff, man. Yeah. Shoot.
They would come up, curl on the couch with Rachel.
Oh yeah, classic stuff, man. But with that being said, man, thank you again for coming on here. Big shout out to Miss V. Big shout out to
Thank you, Miss V. Now, Miss V, you ain't tell me you had Natalie Cole pictures. I would like to see those, please.
Yeah, you better send them pictures too.
I'm coming to Detroit to get you.
Yeah, you gonna sign a petition. And stuff. Man, with that being said, my brother, you have a blessed night, man. Definitely gotta come back over here again, man.
Anytime, brother. You want to talk about anything?
Oh, you got it, man. So with that being said, we out of here.
Boom. Yeah.
Yes, sir, man.